Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular and last meeting of 2022 for December 13th. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Karspeck.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gray.
Here.
Trustee Hardy.
Yes.
Trustee Sorcelli.
Here.
Trustee Murphy.
Here.
Trustee Ayers.
Here.
Trustee Butler.
Here. All right, we have a full board. Next on our agenda is citizen participation. This is a chance for anyone in the audience tonight to speak to anything that's not on tonight's agenda. Everything on tonight's agenda will open it up for public comment. So we'll start off. We have Butch Haas and Sarah Lincoln signed up. It looks like, do you guys want to go together?
Yeah.
We'll do 6 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Welcome back. Thank you for coming.
Butch Haas, Sarah Lincoln, 236 East State Highway 56. We just wanted to let you know that as far as we're concerned, we're ready to close on January 3rd for Newell Farm to be a town park. There's nothing open in our world. So we'll see what happens in the consent agenda. If you have any questions for us, we're happy to answer them. We'll stay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Sorry I was late to that meeting. It's like when I don't show up, things seem to work out, so that's good.
Well, don't throw that there. I think we're just done.
Is there anything else, anyone else that wishes to speak tonight? Okay. Anyone online by chance?
No.
Okay, thank you. We can move on now to consent. Would trustees like anything removed from consent agenda? Otherwise, is
Mayor
there?
Karspeck?
Yes.
I would move forward with the consent agenda minus the bike lane bid
Okay.
and the Larimer County Sheriff's statement of work.
Sure, okay. Is there anything else from trustees? All right, is there a motion to approve minus the Larimer County Sheriff's Office 2023 Statement of Work and the bike lane bid award?
I'll second that.
All right, Trustee Grace has moved, or Mayor Pro Tem Grace has moved on that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and Trustee Ayers has seconded. Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Hardy.
Yes.
Trustee Ayers.
Yes.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Sorcelli.
Yes.
Trustee Butler.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace.
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. All right, items removed from consent agenda will be considered immediately next. So we'll start off with the Larimer County Sheriff's Office 2023 Statement of Work. Trustee Murphy, I'll kick that over to you if you had any questions.
No additional questions. It was brought up by me earlier via email, that monthly you, as the administrator, receive a report from Sergeant Anderson. Is there any way we could have that added to the packet or at the very least emailed to the board? I certainly have an interest. I don't know if my fellow board members would be interested in seeing that monthly.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, we include a summary of those stats in the newsletter, but I can send you the full.
that's what I'd like.
Okay, great. And what about the bike lane? Is that all? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all right. That's all I had on that item. And on the bike bid, I would like to hear staff's opinion on why the southern half of Berthoud Parkway was removed. And is there a plan for completing that section if we move forward with the completion of the bid?
Yeah, the primary reason was that we felt like it was a good way to save some funds. I think I've mentioned before that the asphalt widening was a lot more expensive than we had anticipated. And because we will have a 10-foot wide trail parallel to the road all the way from Dry Creek up to 10E within the next 9 months, that will be all complete. We felt like it wasn't worth spending the several $100,000 to widen that section of the road, since we have that parallel bikeway already anyway. That was our thought process.
Okay.
The southern portion south of Mountain Avenue will get widened as part of development that occurs through that stretch as well. So to have the additional on-street bike infrastructure, which I actually personally prefer as a cyclist, but I understand, we've had conversations about that. The value or the difference between on-road bike infrastructure and off-road bike infrastructure, like a 10-foot wide trail. But that road widening south of Mountain will all get done as development occurs through there anyway. So that wasn't the case. Our standards changed a couple years ago, where the town's prior policy had been that developers didn't have to widen anything larger than a minor collector or larger. Sorry, so anything larger than a minor collector. But I don't think I said that right. I'm gonna say it one more time slow. The town's prior policy used to be that developers didn't have to widen a roadway if it was larger than a minor collector. So major collector or arterial. And we changed that policy a few years ago after I got here, but so new development that's been approved since that policy change will have to widen roadways to their ultimate roadway width, at least on their half of the road. But that wasn't the case before, so that's part of the reason why, like along Vantage, there's only sections where it's wider, and that was only to accommodate turn lanes. They weren't required when they were approved years ago to do that roadway widening.
So there will be no, when the developers expand, they will not be putting in the bike lane? I mean, we'll be putting in the,
No, well, so it'll kind of depend. You know, when you think of it, when you have a project as large as like Ludlow Farm, for instance, it would make sense for them to widen and install a bike lane. If you have smaller sections, we don't want bike lane and no bike lane, bike lane and no bike lane. So while we might stripe a wider shoulder where you could ride, but where it then narrows and widens and narrows, because that happens as development occurs. Until it's complete, we wouldn't stripe a full bike lane, but there would be a paved shoulder there to ride on.
Yeah, no, my thoughts on the issue would be, I believe we can move forward as is. I think it's just something worthwhile to keep our eyes on if there's any safety or, issues from citizens that were brought up after the fact. So that's all I've got.
no, great points on both, thank you. All right, is that it on those two, sounds like? Is there a motion to approve items D and E on the consent?
I'll move to approve items D and E on the consent agenda.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, trustee Murphy has moved on D and E, trustee Ayers has seconded. Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gray,
Yes.
trustee Butler,
Yes.
trustee Sorsali,
Yes.
trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. All right, thank you. We'll move on to item number 2 here, and that's the tree committee appointment, and that'll be, I'll push that over to trustee Murphy.
So me and Carl and Paul and Tony and myself conducted an interview last night with the 2 applicants we had for tree committee. Both were very strong applicants. They were master gardeners. They both had experience with education and involvement. We were really hard pressed with the choice, but we believe we should move forward with appointing Kathy Mitchell as our next tree committee member.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I know those are hard when you have 2 strong candidates, so thank you to both. Is there any questions from the board on that? Comments? Trustee Murphy, would you like to move on that?
Yeah. Let's see here. I'll move to appoint Kathy Mitchell to the Tree Advisory Committee for a term to end on September 30th of 2023.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, trustee Ayers has moved on, or sorry,
Sorry.
trustee Murphy has moved.
Excuse me, that'd be 24 for a 2-year term.
This is a 2-year term, so it would be 2024,
So
is
let's
that
correct that.
all right, clerk?
Yes, trustee Murphy is correct.
All right, should we probably just wanna restate that?
Yeah,
Thank you.
let me restate that.
Good catch.
I'll make the motion to appoint Kathy Mitchell to the Tree Advisory Committee for a term to end on September 30th of 2024.
I'll second that.
Okay, trustee Murphy has moved on this, trustee Ayers has seconded that. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Sorsali,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gray,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
Yes.
trustee Ayers,
Yes.
trustee Butler,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes, okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for you guys interviewing them and to the applicants. We can move on now to item number 3, which is the Trust for Public Lands Conservation Funding Request. And we have Wade Shelton, I believe online, or?
Wade Shelton is online,
I'll
but
just kick it over to you,
John
Administrator.
Thorne and Anna are here in person. They're gonna make the presentation. Wade is available online for questions. And then certainly we're happy to talk about all those details.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for showing up tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Hannah Redmond from the Trust for Public Land.
And I'm Don Thorne, the Executive Director of the Colorado FFA Foundation.
And Wade Shelton, also from Trust for Public Land, is online. And we're here to talk to you today about the Lewis Heritage Farm. TPL, Trust for Public Land, has been working in Larimer County and all over Colorado for the past 20 years in agricultural conservation. And one of the things that we've seen is a big divide between rural living and agricultural conservation and urban living. And the Lewis Heritage Farm is one way we hope to bridge that gap. So the Lewis Farm is actually just a couple miles from here. Head that way, turn south. It is a 226-acre working farm with senior water rights. When TPL purchased it, we conserved it with a conservation easement in partnership with Colorado Cattlemen's Agricultural Land Trust. And the goal for the future is that it becomes an outdoor classroom for future farmers of America's education programs, as well as a working farm. We have also are in conversation with Larimer County about a future regional trail that runs through the Lewis Farm. And we're here today to talk to you all about your support.
Thank you, Hannah. As stated, I'm the Director of the Colorado FFA Foundation. Our goal is to exercise the lease purchase option that our foundation has with Trust for Public Land in order to, our foundation would be the owner of the property and manage the educational programming. We want to be really succinct on time, so I'm an old school teacher. I usually talk for 45 minutes in segments, and so is Hannah, but we'll keep it really brief. Our foundation is a nonprofit foundation that's been around for since about 1991. I'm the only full-time director we've ever had, and I've been the director for 14 years. Ironically, this building, I sat in this building many years ago when there was a group that wanted to start the Birth at Agriculture program and Birth at FFA program. And so some of those planning meetings happened right here in this building, which I thought was pretty cool to be here again. But our mission of our foundation is we want to expand beyond just some of the things we've been doing and really include agriculture literacy. We feel like there's a saying I heard one time that I really like is you can't always make people appreciate agriculture, but you can fascinate them with it. And then after they see that fascination, there's a seek to understand as well. So with this farm, our goal is to have immersive experiences on a producing farm. I'm a farm kid myself, grew up in eastern Colorado. What I know is lots of people in agriculture want people to understand and appreciate agriculture. They would like them to do it somewhere else, not necessarily on their farm, because they've got a job to do, right? And so our goal and our role as a working foundation is to offer these immersive experiences on a producing farm. This gem, this piece of heaven, in my opinion, allows for that because of its location. It allows us to teach conservation, allows us to teach about food production, farm and natural resources with it being adjacent to Little Thompson. The location and the diversity of the farm is ideal. It gives a chance with so close proximity to town here. It gives great opportunity with its location just halfway between Fort Collins and Denver. Some of our partners that are doing a lot of agriculture literacy efforts allow this to be a 30-minute bus ride from within 30 miles, a huge population of young people that hopefully would have an interest in seeing what's going on. We're working with Colorado State University. They have a program called CAMS Ag Academy, and it's their agriculture literacy outreach program. They would be some of our main partners working on this property as well as many others. We've had discussions and talk with different organizations such as 4-H, Scouts, Boys and Girls Club, Environmental Learning for Kids, and other traditional and non-traditional partners. With our close partnership with Colorado State University, everything they're trying to do with the CSU Spur campus, the National Western Center campus, fits right in with the things that we would want to be doing. That might be a 1.0 experience for some of our urban friends, whereas the farm would be a 2.0 experience. And then I'll move on. We knew we needed additional partners. Hannah can just touch briefly on some of who these partners are, and then we can wrap up this part of it.
Yeah, so much of this project is really about partnerships. TPL, we don't manage land long-term. What we do is we get in there and help secure the funding and get these complex land acquisitions projects happening. So FFA, managing long-term, we knew we wanted them to have some other partners that could also be supporting this mission in future years. So Colorado Cattlemen's Agricultural Land Trust, who I've already mentioned, is one of those groups. They have connections all over the state to different ranching and agricultural families, and as well as Larimer County. And our hope is that with all these partnerships working together and our multiple funding partners, that we can see Lewis Heritage Farm having a successful future in the long term.
As Hannah said, Colorado Cattlemen's Agricultural Land Trust is the easement holder. They hold the easement. Easement was conveyed to them at when the Lewis family had sold to Trust for Public Land. We're asking for your help. We need your help. Acquisition funding is not complete, so we're gonna have to keep thinking about acquisition funding before we get to really roll out those educational programming. So help from Berthoud would accelerate that quite a bit. When we would, so we appreciate you considering that. You won't have to be as patient as we were. This is a 6-year project in the making. We've been working on this for over 6 years. Whereas we're at this phase, any help from Berthoud allows you an immediate win. And you get to be right there as we're finishing this up, and you don't have to wait 6 years to see this idea come to fruition. So you get an immediate win and success in the project, and so having it help from us allows us, as I said, to pivot to educational programming. It also shows local and multi-level support. We've received federal funds. We're working on with GOCO funds, county funds, nonprofit, private funds, and then local funds would make a huge difference and be very significant for us. And then I will just finish with, this is a catalyst project. This is a beginning, not just an island or an oasis. We know of properties not far from there and similar in description that are kind of watching and waiting and thinking about conservation themselves and thinking about preserving those spaces agriculturally and natural resource wise. So this is a place, this is not just a one-off, and I think that this is a great catalyst project in the area. So I'll finish with that, and then give Hannah a chance to if you have any other parting thoughts, or we can give you time for questions.
Yeah, happy to take your questions, and Wade should be somewhere in the internet ether to also answer them.
I am here.
All right, I'll open it up to questions. Thank you both for that presentation. JC's, any questions?
You mentioned looking at other farms and stuff in the area to maybe get them to conserve as well. You guys
Yes, sir.
looking at the property that Larimer County is just putting up?
You're talking about the Little Thompson Farm, also known as the Malchow property. It's already conserved, but they're wanting to divest it.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I am not very well versed in it. That's not the one that I'm referencing. We've just talked to, had some side conversations with some private landowners that that also have an interest in seeing where this project goes.
Probably don't want to say their names, probably.
No.
I hope one of them is the Johnsons. Be a trophy for the town.
Well, any farmers, I think.
I can't say, I'm not at liberty till we have option contracts in place to say who we're talking to, but I can say that I can confirm we're talking to other landowners. There's one in particular I spoke to yesterday that is interested in conserving their riverfront frontage on the Little Thompson, and long term, potentially seeing a future trail there as well as part of the planned regional trail from Larimer County. That a piece of which, in addition to a small parking area, would be put on the Lewis farm eventually. So I'm confident that, based on the conversation with this landowner, that folks in the town of Berthoud may be speaking to them as well, but we're definitely want to keep this momentum going and be a good partner for you all and for the county to continue working on this, conserving more land along the corridor, giving landowners more options other than subdivision or development, and making sure we can have the kind of complementary conservation in the future regional trail that strikes that balance that every town in Colorado needs between conserving their history, their natural resources and open space, but still having that balance between growth. So, you continue to have people, moving to the area, working and living and thriving. So we're excited to hopefully have you guys join our team, so to speak.
That's great, because anything that we can do to maybe get some collaboration not only with us, the county, what they're doing, what you guys are doing, the more we can get out there and educate property owners about conservation easements and how to preserve it. Because I think we get a lot of feedback as town trustees of the growth and what are we doing to conserve.
Right.
And that was one of the things we talked about at our retreat, and this board has made a priority of that, is we have gone through a lot of growth and we do really value preserving that open space. We got Hoffmeisters, Rockwells, now Wagner, east of town, plus Wagner Farm Park, and then we have the Malchow property on our west side. So trying to kind of preserve those buffer spaces, and I'll add, to me, not only having this as a buffer space, but as an educational thing to help inform and hopefully build new farmers is something I'm excited about too. So
Well said, sir. You are preaching to the choir.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I'd say one of the things that got the Trust for Public Land first really interested in this kind of project was during the Great Recession. A lot of the areas I was working in the Western Slope, but also in the city of Denver, you had a ton of people who were really interested in getting back to the land, farming, ranching, but they had no idea how to get started. And as someone, I will freely admit, I grew up in Maryland. Most of my family used to be farmers. The operative word there is used to be. Faced the same challenge in the 80s and 90s. Lots of people are facing here. And it really drove home to us that part of what we can be doing with our municipal partners and all the way from local up to federal partners is trying to put together a project like this where folks who want to get back to the land could actually learn how to do it. And so it's particularly exciting to finally get to this point, especially a property that has really significant surface water rights that are all permanently conserved. And quite honestly, some of the best soil I have seen in Colorado. For those of you familiar with prime agricultural soils, 94% of this property are the black, just awesome soils you normally see in like South Dakota. So really an ideal property for this. And, really the start of a node for some future public access as well. So we're excited to hopefully get in the home stretch, get this over to Don and his team so they can start teaching people about agriculture.
Is there, maybe this is more for Chris, just maybe think about the Jakowski property as well that we're trying to figure out what to do with. It's got a conservation easement on it. It's got the barn, classroom and type environment situation. Is there anything there that we can kind of work with this group with as well and utilizing that property and making it?
Could be. I mean, we haven't had those conversations yet, but it's certainly worth talking about.
Because there's all sorts of opportunities around our town for what they're trying to do.
So with this, is this the same property that I might have talked to this gentleman before he left? Probably, I was on the board probably right before you guys. If you guys have been doing this for 6 years?
Sure.
Is this
Yes,
have
sir.
the senior water right on Little Thompson?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yes, sir.
Goes to the Rockwell. All right. Hey, that's fantastic. And
Osborne Kaywood Ditch Company.
yeah, okay, not Rockwell.
Yeah. Not
That's a
Rockwell.
year-round. Yeah, going through that. That's fantastic. Wade, do you mind just enlightening us on, so I read an old newspaper article where the Fort Collins editor was talking about birthed soils. Do you know why ours is particularly better with the Little Thompson versus the Big Thompson or Pooter?
I'd say it's the alluvial runoff that you're getting, more, is really the source of the soil. And I think a lot of it is that there's less development along Little Thompson overall. And just, I'd say a lot of it just has to do with the morphology of the stream corridor itself, of where, and the lack of development of where, because you've had largely private land, private farms and ranches along the corridor, that those soils have built up. So I think you have an advantage of that whole corridor has really been in farming since Colorado was a territory. And with those continued uses, people who are taking care of the soil really builds up. When you don't have the same kind of development, things like that, the soil can really build up over time.
Okay, thank you.
More reason to conserve.
Administrator Kirk, so one of the things with the board was to kind of help out other people with the application for conservation easements. I guess at least through Colorado Open Lands, there's an application fee and it was kind of steep. Administrator Kirk, if this happens in the future, and we use this $200,000 on this farm, are we gonna have enough going forward next year? Or are we gonna pull it out of a different fund or?
Yeah, I think, the priority that the board set for us this year, and we talked a little bit about in the budget, is to create a clear funding source for those types of efforts. So this year, we were able to put $300,000 into that account. You know, in my prior conversations with representatives of Colorado Open Lands, you know, the transaction fees might be somewhere in the $80,000-$90,000 range. I don't know enough about it, just that's the number we talked about generally. You know, if we were gonna support a specific project they were working on previously. So for me, I just use that as kind of a gauge. So that would still give us some flexibility. You know, we budgeted $300,000 this year, or in 2023, I say, this upcoming year. So 100,000 would, I think, still allow us to make that level of support. We still have some funding in that, we still have money in that fund that we could also use if the board wanted to increase that funding in the middle of the year if a great project came along. So I think we still have some flexibility there as well. And then in future years, we should be able to continue to support that fund. As you know, we're taking money from our Parks and Open Space impact fees, from our 1998 1% fund, and then putting that into our Laramie County Open Space Fund to consolidate all those funds in one place so you can see this is how much money we have set aside for conservation efforts.
Great. If no other questions, then if we,
I have
trustee Ayers, please.
So you guys said this kind of collaborative project of this size and scope is not really anywhere else in northern Colorado. Do you know of any other in the greater region where something like this is happening, and how successful that may or may not be?
I can say, and I want to have Don weigh in as well, because as the educator, you know, the partner that actually will uses properties like this. I want to make sure Don weighs in as well. But I can say that this is something that the Trust for Public Land and Colorado Cattlemen's Agricultural Land Trust have been specifically looking at for over 10 years. I am not aware of anywhere else in northern Colorado that has a conserved, you know, property like this with these kind of uses. And quite honestly, I think there are very few properties like this throughout the state, period, or the country. This is something, a model that I know other TPL offices around the country are looking to potentially recreate. Hannah and I have colleagues in Florida that are actively working on a similar project, kind of following what we're doing. So we are blazing some proverbial and literal new trail on this one, which is pretty exciting for all of us. And I'd also add that at Trust for Public Land, we would love to continue to be a resource and partner for Berthoud beyond this project. As Hannah and Don mentioned earlier, we don't like to do what we would call a one and done type project. When you get involved in a landscape or a community, you make a lot of friends, you make a lot of headway. It's you want to make sure you're adding the most value that you can. So we certainly want to beyond this project, see what we can do to help you with other projects, bringing in other funding to leverage the funds you do have. We partner with Colorado Open Lands as well, and we've had some discussions with them around could we all work together to try and create a bigger pot of money that lets everyone do more in the area. So we'd certainly be interested in having more of those conversations with you all and making sure that we're providing all the services and resources that we can. Illustrating that, we helped the town of Windsor pass a conservation ballot measure about a month ago that's creating dedicating funding for them. And honestly, I think it's partially because we helped the city of Greeley buy 1,000 acres on the Pooter in March. So there are lots of other avenues we can help you with. We haven't even touched on beyond our conservation finance staff that helped put together those ballot measures. We have landscape architects and planners on staff who focus more on community engagement design around more active use parks. They just finished remodeling Panorama Park in Colorado Springs, which is an incredible project. So we're focused on ag today, but there are lots of areas we could potentially partner with you as well down the road.
From an agriculture perspective, I'm not aware of any that are really focused on the production agriculture side. Our partners at CSU are doing some really cool stuff at CSU Spur. Our foundation actually has we've completed another project not near the size or complexity, to be honest with you. It was to settle an estate, but we own 320 acres of grassland outside of Colorado Springs and near Calhan. And so we're kind of replicating the same model in a different place there. So that's another project that that we're involved in as a foundation that's really geared towards youth development and agriculture and leadership development.
Thank you.
I had a question too. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Trustee Scarselli?
Mine was similar to trustee Ayers as well, as I just wanted to know, just for reference, examples of other similar projects that encompassed the similar goals, but it sounds like this will be a new project in many ways that is gonna be more of a spearhead project, which to me is fascinating. It makes me more excited about it because this is something our board has talked about, I think unanimously, that this is a goal of ours, is to preserve as much land as possible and create that excitement for agriculture and preserve it. So thank you for the reference there. Can you give us any example of other partnership projects like this? Because you mentioned a lot of different partners working together to make the learning opportunities possible. Are there any other projects like that happening currently, or is that a new one with this particular project?
I feel like this is really a trailblazer, a pioneering project, and I can tell you that I've learned a lot of to do and to not to do probably in the 6 years we've been kind of working on this. And so, in collaboration, I always say the best result comes out of collaboration, but it's also the hardest way to get some, it's also sometimes the hardest way to get somewhere, but the end result's worth it. I really, from our perspective of the things that we're doing and organizations that we work with, this is pretty unique, and gets to be a first, but not the only, I think, for sure.
Awesome.
To
Yeah.
speak from TPL's perspective, partnerships are how we manage every project. Often that comes down to funding partners. But one project I think about that has a lot of partners and is similar but not the same at all is with one of the partners we mentioned earlier, ELK, which is Environmental Learning Center for Kids, or Environmental Learning for Kids. And they are in Montbello in Denver. TPL helped acquire land and build a park for them that has natural grasslands and works as flood mitigation in the Montbello neighborhood, and also has the elk facility adjacent to it. So they're able to teach in that area. They had input in the design, and we have a community outreach resident expert, a core fellow, which is a program that TPL has started where we have a young person in his 20s who has grown up in Montbello, lives there, and is on our staff for 2 years to facilitate our engagement in that community.
Awesome.
So similar,
That's
but
amazing.
very different.
Bonus
We
for a
want
good
them to
acronym.
be one of our, sorry, go ahead.
I said bonus for a good acronym. Government
Yeah.
work is always terrible at it. So core is a fantastic one.
We want them to be one of our first guests at the Lewis Heritage Farm when we really roll out our, get a little bit beyond just pop-up educational programming.
Wonderful.
I'll just add to that briefly. I mean, Don and Hannah nailed it. I'll just add that I've spoken to ELK's executive director over the past 6 months, keeping them informed about this project, and they are very excited about what we're doing with the Lewis Farm, and explicitly said, so you have a spot that we could take our kids from the city out to learn about agriculture, water conservation, and why all this stuff is important. I said, yes, exactly. And he said, do you think any of the kids that FFA is working with might want to come out to Montbello and benefit from what we're doing? And I will let Don and his team take it from there. But it's a good example of how we are blazing new trail and finding ways for rural agricultural environmental educators to work with urban ones. So, we can all find out that we have a lot more in common than we have different. Just the population densities are a little different between urban and rural. So it's very exciting about what's coming together. And I really appreciate all of your enthusiasm for it, because it's been a lot of work over the past 6 years, especially during the pandemic. And it's just very exciting to hear a lot of enthusiasm from you all.
Other questions, trustees? Trustee Ayers? Oh, Trustee Murphy.
I just had some questions on the Larimer County easement for a trail, kind of what the status of that is. We haven't had any discussions with them, but I see this as an area we could partner with them or
Sure.
take charge.
Happy to give you some
His feelings on the trail easement or building a trail through the property.
Yeah, so the status is we're not, we've had discussions and we're in the middle of trading some paper back and forth and some agreements on where, on the easement. Right now, the easement is I don't know, I don't wanna go too far, I'll defer to Wade on how far to go on that. I think, you know, that was part of the deal with them and also a catalyst for us getting the GOCO grant to make, for that to come to pass. And so we're close, we hope that in the next, actually before the end of the calendar year, if we can get some of those final details hammered out. Wade, is there anything specific, you know, without it being agreed upon, I'm being a little vague, I guess, but the agreement's there and we won't be able to move forward and we can't assume ownership of the property without the easement in place, because that's the key to unlocking the GOCO funds.
No,
And the
that's,
GOCO funds are paramount to us acquiring the property.
no, well said, Don. I mean, there's no question that when we convey the property to FFA, we'll be conveying a trail easement to Larimer County as well. We're keeping the configuration of the trail and the location of the future public parking area not totally defined, because we want to give FFA time to get their educational programs running, get the farm management under their belt, so we can make sure that where it's being placed works for, you know, the active management of the property as a working farm and outdoor classroom. Also want to make sure that it works well for, you know, neighbors and so on. But there's no question, you know, one of the GOCO grant requirements is that this trail easement be granted to Larimer County with the, you know, future parking area. So it really will be a question of when the trail is built, when the county's ready to do that, and what its final configuration will be. But there's no question that when we close, there'll be a trail easement with the county, and eventually, once the county can complete their plans, you know, for the regional trail, because you've got to have places to go, that eventually you'll have the regional trail system, you know, in this area. And that's what makes the Lewis Heritage Farm so critical, is being one of the first nodes, so to speak, with public parking.
I think it's a fantastic project and it'll be a really nice addition to the community, so thank you for putting this together, you guys.
Thank you, and thank you for your time on the agenda, and thanks for considering support to help us get this to the finish line and really get to doing the fun part, which is the educational part of the program.
Do you mind if I open it up for public comment, just in case there's anyone?
Please.
All right, I'll open it up to the public if there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to comment on this potential direction. Okay, I'll close that, bring it back to the board. Sounds like we're all supportive of that direction.
I would
Okay.
just like to add that in addition to funds, I would love to see that our town supports the collaboration process. That whatever partnerships you guys are looking for from schools or programs that can utilize the space or participate in contributions, I would love to see staff contribute time or energy to bringing those collaborations together, at least seeing what we can do to facilitate it. I don't know how you feel
Absolutely.
about that.
Okay. Direction pretty clear?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you guys for your time
Have a
coming
great-
out tonight. And Wade, thank you for being online. Nice to meet you.
Yep, thank you, enjoy your holidays, thank
You
you.
likewise, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All
Appreciate
right.
the flexibility too.
Yearly service funding request, and this is by Ginger Tomasi, which I saw earlier. Welcome, Ginger.
I'm also gonna ask Brian Du Bois, who you guys have met. He's been working with Ginger on the agreement. He'll kind of give you an introduction, and then Ginger can share some additional information as needed and answer questions.
Excellent. Hi, Brian.
Good evening, everyone, and like Chris said, I'm Brian Du Bois, I'm the assistant to the town administrator. Before I turn it over to Ginger, I'm just gonna give you a quick little intro. The town staff is seeking to enter an agreement with HNS to provide $35,000 for utility assistance. These funds can be used up to 3 months worth of payments for residents. And it can go towards town supplied utilities, Excel, Poudre Valley, REA, etc. And we will be using these funds from the ARPA money that we received from the federal government. Yeah, and that's it. It's pretty straightforward. And
Okay.
I'd like to introduce Ginger Tomasi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Ginger Tomasi. I'm an assistant director with House of Neighborly Service and run our Berthoud location. For those of you who might not be familiar with what we do here in the community, I want to give you just the quick few second version of the services that we provide here. We opened our branch here in Berthoud in 1989, so we've been serving here for almost 34 years. In our community, we help with basic needs: food, clothing, utility help, prescriptions, gas vouchers to get to work or medical, and then wrap around, family navigation, parenting help, child development, tutoring. The list goes on, that we're just here to support those in need in our community. And the need is rising. I live here in the community myself, and as I have been in this position for over 5 years now, time is flying, the need has continued to grow. We have many people that you might not be aware of, that these new homes that are going up, there's more than one family going into them. There's generations living together to make it happen, and we're coming alongside and we're supporting them. We have spent over $32,000 already this year in keeping people from getting their utilities shut off or getting them back on. Through it with all the different utilities. We've given out close to 60,000 pounds of food in our community this year already. It's, I think today we broke our 2,000 number of visits so far this year, and we still have a few more. So the need is great here in our community. It's hidden. A lot of times we have people coming in who have said, we've never ever saw ourselves in this condition. We thought we were the ones who gave. And but they leave saying, I have hope. They leave saying, I can breathe. That they realize they're not alone because there's help here in the community. And so that's part of the ask that we're coming to you tonight. And this help with funding is huge. We've had to turn people away at times when we run out of utility money. We've had years that's been, I'm sorry, we can't help you. We try to get them connected to another resource. We have people who came home from work and they found out their utility was turned off, and they're calling going, is there any way you can help? Can you get it back on? We work with them, we get that back on for them. So this is a way that the town can come along and help support our own residents and keep the utilities on, help. Prices are rising, people are getting forced out of their homes, they're struggling to pay rent. This is one way that we can at least help relieve that burden, because we don't have the resources for rent and all of that, but we can help subsidize with food and clothes and utilities and prescriptions to help free their resources so that they can keep paying the rent to keep a roof over their heads. So our goal at House of Neighborly Service is to help them succeed, to help them survive for some of them, but we want to see them thrive and we want to see them move on. But the need is great and we can't do it alone. So we're here just to say if we can get some help with some of this ARPA funding. We partnered with Loveland for some of their ARPA funding to help our Loveland clients from our location there, and we would so appreciate any help that the town can give us to help meet the need here in our town of Berthoud. So I'm happy to answer any questions about what we do, what the need is, or how this funding would be used.
Thank you, Ginger.
Yeah.
Trustees, questions?
Mayor Karspeck, if I may, just one little additional note. I don't know if anybody thought of this. I don't know why it popped up in my head, and thankfully the National League of Cities had a good explanation. Utility assistance provided through ARPA funds is not considered income for tax purposes for folks that receive that assistance. Again, I don't know why that. I was just curious, and like I said, thankfully the National League of Cities had already written up a piece about that. And then the other piece of the puzzle is that ARPA funds are not required to be obligated until the end of 2024. They don't have to be spent until the end of 2026. So if we still have some ARPA funds, it might be something we can do year over year for a few years. And that's a decision I think the board can certainly make as we move forward. Just in case you're curious about how does this go forward from here.
Tax help's one of the things you guys offer too. Learning from your Loveland facility, that's pretty cool. An animal assistance too for food and whatnot.
We have multiple here in Berthoud. We're not able to offer quite as much until our building is built, and we'll have several more of the agencies, but we do a lot of referrals to the agencies that are in our Loveland Life Center and Longmont, depending on where they typically go or where we can find the resources that we don't have here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess,
Mayor Pro Tem.
yeah, I know ARPA, the amount in question here, how often is that going to be replenished, or is that just a one and done? Is that number subject to be increased or decreased, or is that the best choice we got?
I mean, as far as now, we just had thought of the 35,000, and this would be a year-long contract. So we could always, if we have, like Chris said, we could always renew it next year, and then if we have leftover money, and then just keep using that. And if there is a need for more, then we could always discuss that and decide later.
Ms. Tomasi, how long have you been doing help with Loveland for utility assistance? It's been long before ARPA came along, right?
For our Loveland location?
Right.
The city of Loveland, we are actually contracted with them. They put a certain amount of money in their town budget every year to help with their own city utilities, and they contract with us and actually pay us to do all the screening for their Loveland utility needs and to help the community with it. So we've been partnering with them. I've been with H&S for 9 years now, but long before that.
Okay. And do they give you a little extra for
They
to help
do
out
for
with
the
your-
admin,
Right.
they do to help just cover our staff costs for being able to all the work that goes into paying the utilities, they do.
And does this money that's being considered right now include admin?
I believe in the contract we had a line item for admin. I don't think we determined an amount that would be able to. I don't know what the ARPA funding restrictions, if they have like a percentage. EOC, if you're familiar with Energy Outreach Colorado, that's another big one. They have a certain percentage that they allocate for every agency that gets EOC that we get for admin. So ARPA may have a set one. I'm not, that would be through the town would know.
I think, so within the way this works is that we're committing $35,000 and then H&S will send us invoices. And those invoices are allowed to have administrative expenses on them.
Thank you.
So
Good. I was just wondering about you guys, how this,
Yeah, thank you for looking out for us.
Oh, yeah,
We-
gotta
We
take
do
care of
have to pay our staff, they
Right, yeah.
appreciate it,
Well, you're-
checked.
And I do think, in the context of what Loveland does, Loveland owns the water and power company, right? So it's a little unique in that, most of the Loveland utilities outside of like internet service or whatever, actually now Loveland owns its own internet service too.
And
you know,
trash.
And trash and all of that, right? And Loveland is kind of full service from a utility standpoint. So even without ARPA funds, we could still, in the future, I think, and these are things that we could talk about as this partnership progresses, could support funding for our own utilities like Loveland does, right? Whereas this funding that we're providing through ARPA could be used for Excel or Poudre Valley or other utilities that aren't ours, right? Just for Berthoud residents locally here. But the ARPA funds are a little more flexible, I think, that way, if that makes sense.
No, it does, thank you. Other questions, trustees?
Yeah, so you said you've already distributed 36,000 this year?
32, not counting what we give out this month.
Okay, and that funding came from,
Variety of sources, Berthoud Community Foundation, we applied for grants from them to help out some. We get some from Energy Outreach Colorado, they've reallocated to how they do their funding, so that's affected our ability to help with some of the utilities this year for that one. We also get, we apply for grants from foundations to try to get that funding. Individual donors who decide to take us on and designate it for
so this will
utility help.
essentially be doubling your budget for 2023?
It will, in some of it, we don't know for 2023. Every year, we have to apply for funding. We don't always get guaranteed what we can get. So when we have
Budget-wise,
budget-wise, right, it would, and it may replace some funding that we got that we weren't able to get additionally.
because I know one of the things I've asked for before was on our town billing, if they could add a little extra box that says pay it forward, and someone could add an extra $5 or $10.
Yes.
So cross my fingers on that one.
Have we done any work on that? Cause trustee Hardy's brought that up, and Attorney Smith, I know you've done some work on that, I remember that night. Not here, but you had experience elsewhere with
No,
Utility?
different program.
different program? Administrator Kirk, do we have that ability?
In the context of our rate study that we'll do, we've begun work on that rate study, we're working on that in parallel with our master plan, that's something we can certainly talk about.
I'm just talking on the bill pay.
Yeah.
The software that we had, just an extra box for someone to
Yeah, I
add
think
to their
we
bill a
have to
couple
figure out
dollars.
how to manage those funds. I honestly, I'll be honest, I don't remember hearing that before, so that's my fault.
No, it's all right, I just, it was under reports or something that night, but I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah, I brought it
Yeah,
up in
that is a
reports
cool
couple
idea.
times. But yeah, just always thought that'd be kind of a neat feature on our bill pay that there's just a little place someone could add an extra couple bucks or $100 or whatever. We could track that and add it to something like this.
Further questions, trustees? Open it up for public comment?
Couple other on the, I guess the
Yeah.
number side, about how much ARPA funding are we expecting in terms of grand total in versus how much we're allocating for this, or do we know yet?
We've already received ARPA funding over $2 million.
Okay, so we could expand this budget more if the board wanted to.
We could.
Okay. I guess to that point, question for you, is 35,000 an agreeable amount? Would you like to see that number higher?
I'd say, I think it's a great start for this next year and see where we end up. Because we do have a few other sources of funding, we were able to give out 32,000 by the end of this month. It could be closer to 35 or more. I think our last fiscal year was over 35,000. And it always ebbs and flows with the amount of funding, but knowing that we have that chunk of funding allows us to be freer and not scale back. If somebody comes in and they're really hurting, we don't say, well, we're just gonna keep you from being shut off. We can pay your past due, get you caught up, start at zero again instead of that. So I would say let's start with this, and then if the ARPA funding is still there and it's available and we're like, the need has increased with the coming times that we're seeing and we need it more, if that's a possibility to be able to come back and say the need is growing. But I don't want you to allocate so much and then we're finding that the need isn't enough to match that much that you could use for somewhere else. I
Sure.
wanna be,
Well, it's, just want to make sure that, you know, this program serves you best and not just kind of a random number that was come up with and we just ran with it, so.
no, compared to what, you know, with the needs that we're seeing now and then the rising needs, this should more than adequately keep us for what we're seeing.
Sure.
Of course, we never can predict the future and what the needs are gonna be, but for right now, this will put us in a comfortable place where we won't have to worry about who we might have to turn away or not being able to pay a full amount for them.
Got it. Okay. That's it for me.
Other questions? Trustee
I had
Martin?
a quick addition to that. I wanna thank you, Administrator Kirk, for bringing up that additional information. I think that's a key part of this is the fact that it's not considered income for the people receiving the aid. I think we should plan on that ARPA funding being available for this in the years to come, whether it's allocated or not right now. I don't think we have to do, but from a staff perspective, if we can retain ARPA funds rather than, you know, deploying them to other uses, I think that's maybe critical for this. So, I don't know if we need any official action on that, but if that can be in the back of our minds as we go forward. And we have plans for using those funds on other things.
Yeah, and we, you know, our current plan is to invest that money in Third and Massachusetts, the significant portion of that.
ARPA is American Recovery so it's a general, okay.
Yeah, and you know, the initial rules for ARPA were really limited in scope, what it could be used for. What they called the interim final rule, doesn't make any sense, of course. How could it be interim and final at the same time, but then when the final rules were actually adopted, we can spend it on almost anything. And so, you know, utility assistance, and broadband access, utility projects were early kind of intents of the funding. And now the limits are, the list of what you can't do with the funds is dramatically shorter than the list of what you can do. And so, you know, I think from a practical standpoint, if we take money from those ARPA funds and set them aside, thinking that, you know, we wanna continue this program year after year, I don't see any issue with that. It just means that we would then backfill that money, cause we're not gonna pay for all of Third Street, Massachusetts with ARPA anyway, right? That's gonna require a significant investment of town funds as well. So it would just change that dial a little bit. It would dial up the town funds and dial down the ARPA funds for Third and Massachusetts. And certainly I think we'll talk about it a little bit tonight. We've talked about it before. Part of our struggle is we don't know how much the project's gonna cost. You know, you might remember when we started the project, design work almost a year ago for Third and Massachusetts, our cost estimate was like $4 million, now it's $8 million. You know, it's just, and the scope hasn't changed. That's just, you know, construction cost changes and contingencies and whatever. So we're gonna have to make some of those funding decisions as we get closer to bidding that project anyway. And I think you guys can help us decide where that dial should be set, if that makes sense.
And just to say that this would largely be neutral from a town perspective, it would just be an additional benefit for the person receiving aid, correct?
Yeah, the ARPA funds were federal money to begin with, right? It's just, I hate to use this term, but it's like manna from heaven, right? It was just like, we weren't planning on the money, we didn't have any plans for the money when we received it. And so, yeah, I mean, in that sense, it's kind of cost neutral for the town.
And if I may, I think I could help you some with your questions as far as people getting assistance through us. All the assistance that people get through us, they don't claim on their taxes. It's considered basically a blessing to be able to have that, but it's nothing that we give them any form of paperwork or something that they have to turn around and claim through all the years that we've been doing that. So it's not gonna affect or put them into a higher tax bracket or anything by any means.
Clarifies things.
Yeah, and then also as you're thinking through additional funding in years and things, I wanna let you know too, because of the way we do it with the drawdown, where we spend the money and pay for it up front, and then we get reimbursed by the town for it. The beauty of that is if we have other grants and stuff that come in larger or subsidizing it, or we have some other utility money that comes in, the ARPA funds is a nice backup for us. It helps us not to have to say no to anyone. But some of that, if we don't use it all, it will still be there in the town funding to either help us out the next year or to help another project out. So that's part of the beauty of partnering with us with that, is our funding ebbs and flows. So the need that we would need to tap into that would ebb and flow with that as well.
I'm good.
As promised, I'd like to open it up to the public if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this. Doesn't sound like any, so I'll bring it back to the board. I think we've all asked our questions and spoke and very supportive of you, Ms. Tomasi, and just from my personal experience, I'm really encouraged to hear the board being really positive about what you do, and being in there, it's it can be depressing and really tough at times, but for you to focus full time on the needs of our community, just wanna thank you on a personal level for
Thank you.
kinda doing that work.
Rewarding at
Yeah.
the same time.
Absolutely. Would any trustee like to move? Oh, sorry, did it? I cut you off.
I was just gonna say that I support, I think it was Murphy that said, Trustee Murphy that talked about the continual years, I just wanna echo that and say that this is a great step for this year and I'm fully supportive, but I want us as a board and the town to have that future planning of saying this is something we wanna support for future years regardless of where that funding's coming from, and make sure that we could kind of echo the model of Loveland and have a pot of funds that we're putting into. And I also loved the idea of having something on the bill where people can contribute additional funding for those in need. I think that's a sweet idea because we have a generous community, I think. And so that could be a great way to just, if we have a pot created or fund created, then there's ways and mechanisms to put money into that. So that's just the only thing I wanted to add.
I completely agree with that. It's comforting to know, good neighbors build longer tables, not taller fences, and this is where it all comes out, so.
Takes a village.
Good phrase. Excellent. Would any of the trustees like to move on this? Do we need to add that in about the ongoing support? Sounds like today is just about the budget, but we can talk about that
Yeah, I
separately.
think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to tonight. I mean, I think that's clear and we're certainly happy to do that at the staff level for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Any trustees like to move on it?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I will move to approve the agreement between the Town of Berthoud and House of Neighborly Services to provide utility assistance to residents.
Second.
All right, trustee Sorcelli has moved on this, Mayor Pro Tem Grace has seconded. Trustees, any final discussion? Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
trustee Ayers,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
Yep.
trustee Sorcelli,
Yes.
trustee Butler,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate it.
DuBois. All right, is it right we can move on? Take any break? Okay, let's move on to number 5, which is the adoption of building and energy codes by reference. And this is a public hearing for those listening in, which means it's kind of a more legal quasi-judicial thing where we'll open it up with presentation and then trustees can ask questions. We'll move it on to audience comment and then bring it back for deliberation before a vote. Administrator Kirk, would you like to add anything?
No, that's perfect. And
Okay.
I'll just, if it's okay, we'll turn the time over to Mr. Freeze for.
Perfect, welcome, thank you.
Hi, I really don't have too much to add, other than at the last meeting, there was some discussion about the level 2 charging stations, so I did add that language for multifamily and commercial. And I took that from California, that sentence. So we seem to be the leaders of this, so and just for, I think, Sean and Jeff, who weren't here, we're updating it every 3 years. We made a commitment. The average cost that we estimated from the other communities and just ourselves is about $2,500 to make these updates. And the state is now going to start mandating in 2025 the energy code updates. So just so everybody is aware, we're about a year behind. But in the next 3 years, you're gonna have to mandate, you're gonna have to update the energy code just like you do the electrical code. So we have told all of the builders, so they're aware, and this would go in effect on January 13th. Not as much of a rush as other years, other times we've done this because the market, so it should be manageable for staff, so.
Thank you. Trustees, questions? Trustee Butler.
What's been the feedback or response from the local builders?
Really the only feedback we've since to rehash the last discussion, so Larimer County, Loveland, Longmont, Boulder, Fort Collins are all on basically the exact, pretty much the same amendments that we have. We're using the same ones that Fort Collins and Larimer County have adopted. I think they're all pretty used to it. The only comments we've received are from Habitat for Humanity. Just their concern, $2,500 is a lot to them, right? And I think the discussion we had last time is right now, most of their houses are modular, so they're built, structurally they're built off-site and they're pieced together, and then, the finishings, the fixtures, all that kind of thing is kind of put together by volunteers on-site. And so they're actually not even under the current building code or energy code. They're under they're actually under a 2015 code, and that's actually mandated by the state. So the state does their inspections because they're modular homes. So, when they go to stick-built homes, it would affect them, but right now, it wouldn't affect them with their current houses. But it's definitely a concern, every 3 years, as you update these code amendments, it's gonna bring additional cost.
What is your opinion about the future direction about modular? Do you see that becoming more common?
Well, I think we were probably the first community, and Chris who was involved in this, we worked with Richfield Homes over in Prairie Star. And I think we were like one of the first communities to allow, to really actually accept this and maybe even, see if this could work. But those duplexes that are really modern looking, I think everybody can maybe knows what I'm talking about. You can see them from 287. The first few were actually, they were gonna do them all as modulars, and then they were thinking of kind of doing modulars for new houses for the rest of Prairie Star. Well, it didn't work out very well. If anybody, I think you might have been on the tour. Didn't work out very well. Will, I think, was on the tour too, and
one of
Sean.
them fell off a
Three of you
semi-truck
were
in
on
Iowa.
with the planning commission and some of the board members, and there was huge cracks and all sorts of problems, and I think they just couldn't work it out with the factory, so they kind of have abandoned that model and they stick built the rest of them. So, but we allow it under the code. It's probably the future. It's just, right now, it seems like that might take some more time to work.
I know when I built my modular, it was kind of like, came to town for the permits and I forget who was the planner at the time, but they're kind of like, what? You're bringing in 4 chunks of a house and putting it on site? Because my house is modular, if you know where I'm at. It was like one of the first and had to explain to everybody, no, it's not a trailer house, it's a stick pit house just built in a factory. It's something very new, but I think definitely something of the future.
Other questions for Planner Freeze? Okay, thank you. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak to this agenda item, this comment will be considered as testimony. We have no one signed up. Is there anyone that did not sign up that wishes to speak? Okay, I'll close the public portion of the hearing and bring it back to the board. Any deliberation on this? Any thoughts? I think with $2,500, this might be a different conversation in years to come, but Habitat puts in so few houses, it might be worth the town just picking up that, like we waived some of the other fees. I see their worry about upfront costs, but to the resident in the long run, it's a cost savings.
I think it's important to remember that that's probably an average number, right? Habitat homes are typically smaller and there's a different type of build that occurs, and so the cost actually might be less to them.
Okay.
Cause it's not a fee per se, right?
Right,
It's
yeah.
construction cost.
Yeah, thank you. Sounds like we're all supportive.
I don't think anyone's gonna argue against less efficient stuff.
Yeah, well, we've been to, other boards have, so.
Man, my asbestos. No, sounds great. Looks great. I mean, everything in here makes perfect sense, so.
Okay, well, would anyone like to move?
Yes, I'll read the paragraph.
My glasses on.
I move to approve ordinance 1313, an ordinance of the town of Berthoud amending chapter 11 of the municipal code of the town of Berthoud for the purposes of adopting the 2021 International Building Code by reference with amendments, the 2021 International Residential Code reference with amendments, the 2021 Existing Building Code with reference, the 2021 Energy Code with amendments, the 2020 National Electric Code by reference with electric vehicle amendments, the 2021 International Plumbing Code by reference with amendments, the 2021 International Fuel Gas Code, Gray Water Systems adopting Control Regulation 86 by reference, the 2021 International Mechanical Code by reference with amendments, and the 2021 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code by reference.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I'm so good at that.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem has moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Trustee Hardy is seconded. Any final discussion on this being a? Okay, clerk, can we have roll call vote, please?
Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
trustee Butler,
Yes.
trustee Sorcelli,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace.
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. Thank you very much. Planner Freeze?
Mayor Karspeck,
Yes.
if I may, before, I don't know if Kurt might choose to duck out of here and I don't want him to before I have the opportunity. Yeah, I knew he was gonna duck out of here. It's bittersweet for me to let you guys know that Kurt has accepted a position out of state in South Carolina, will be leaving us in January. I wanted to take the opportunity here during our meeting to just thank him and recognize him for the work that he has done here over the last 7 years. Kurt has overseen, the biggest building boom in Berthoud's history, and all the while trying to manage that has also helped us to update our codes, our long-range plans. When I came in, Kurt was just ready and open to hey, here's all these great ideas I've had we haven't been able to do yet. Can we make this stuff happen? And every time I had an idea or the board had an idea, Kurt was taking those and running with them, drafting code himself and doing research of other places. And anyway, he's just been a huge part of our team for the last, certainly the entire time I've been here, and just wanted to let you guys know that we're gonna be going through those organizational growing pains as those changes occur. We're really happy for him and his family and the opportunity they have to go there, and just want to let you guys know that was happening, recognize him and thank him for his work.
That's shocking and wow, Kurt, Planner Freeze, I just thank you for your time. I'd love to, before you speak, I'd love to thank you as well, starting on the board for being the only planner during this huge boom. And I know you, there was a lot of tension during that time and you handled it really well. And like Administrator Kirk said, able to add some stuff in there. And thank you, Administrator Kirk, for, I think you did a lot to set Kurt loose as far as hit those ideas. I saw a real change there. And you finally got some much needed help with Planner Olinger. So, well, thank you very much. That's really,
Fortunately,
what is up with you in the South?
Leaving you as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give you another little update there in a minute.
I just like it there. I don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we have some health issues. That
Oh,
I guess
okay,
the
never mind.
altitude is just.
So it's not the okra?
The
I
weather.
mean, I like fried okra. It's pretty good.
Where did you come from? Did you come from Kentucky or something?
I mean, I'm from Cincinnati.
No.
Most of my life,
It's a chili thing.
adult life, I've lived in the South, so I guess except for here. So. But I just was, gonna thank you guys, for supporting all those efforts and especially for Chris. I mean, he's been a wonderful boss, a really good leader here. And Cindy has been really wonderful too. Don't forget about her. She does a tremendous amount of work.
How can I forget about Cindy?
And Christian are really like the best clerks, I think, in the state of Colorado. So I mean, you have a really good staff and it's been a pleasure to work here. It's certainly not because I didn't like working here.
Sure.
It's been great. So.
And when's your last day?
In January, early January. Wow. A lot of moving. If anybody wants to buy a house, I have one for sale.
And Longmont.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we'd have to leave our position.
Yeah, there's that, I guess. But
Well, thank you. Trustees, I'd just love to give you a round of applause. Thank you very much.
And as Kurt alluded to, it's unfortunate timing, it was not planned, but our planner, Adam Olinger, has also accepted a position with the city of Boulder, and so we're gonna be going through some major changes. And as you can imagine, that is our entire planning staff, and so that'll be, we hate to lose both of them, and Adam is awesome, he's been an awesome addition to our team the last few years. And we're excited for him, it's a great opportunity and one that we just can't match. I mean, just the pay level is better and the benefits and working from home and all kinds of stuff we just can't do. And so I'm excited for him, happy for him as well, but we will appreciate some patience over the next couple months as we get all that stuff sorted out and but I'm sure that
This might be a
we'll
behind the
continue
scenes
forward.
conversation, but this does have planning repercussions for the next couple of months. Is there any thought on what we're doing?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to kind of talk through that. I've already spoken to Baseline Engineering. They are our contracted town engineer. They also offer planning services and they'll take on current planning work for us. Brian and Jeremy and I will pick up the long range planning stuff that we're working on right now, like the First Street overlay and some of those types of issues. I'm pretty heavily involved in the water side of planning and working with developers already. Kurt and I work together on a lot of those issues, and so it'll just be me being a little more engaged in those than I am now. And hopefully that's on a very short-term basis. We'll be starting advertising hopefully tomorrow for Kurt's replacement, and we'll just go from there. So I think we'll be fine on the current planning side. Baseline Engineering is intimately familiar with what we do and how we do it. They've been working with us for several years now. Their director of planning at Baseline Engineering has worked with, he was actually our project manager on Wagner Farm Park project and has done some other things for us as well. So we have a good relationship with them. They should be able to slide in and take those things on. And if we find that that's not working, we'll certainly come back to you and talk about what other options there might be. But we think we'll be fine for a few months till we're able to find Kurt's replacement.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanna say publicly, thank you, Mr. Freeze, for all your service and help to our town. The years on the planning commission, I'm pretty proud of what we've accomplished in the last few years, especially with your help to get us where we are, because we were behind the curve there for a little bit, playing catch up. And I think we're now ahead of it, so that's a sincere accomplishment. I'm very appreciative of.
All right.
It was just
No, go
yesterday, you
please.
were the new guy when I was on planning commission.
No, I'll echo the same comments. Kurt and Adam, excellent work. Thank you for everything you've done for the town the past few years.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any trustees wanna take a break or we wanna move right into the budget? Keep going, okay.
We're on time, we're on
We're
schedule.
rolling. Yeah,
All right.
we're on schedule? Wait, that can't be right.
Chill.
Hold on.
Oh, we're ahead of schedule.
Oh my god, we're 10 minutes out of schedule.
Yeah.
No, don't stop now.
Greg was gonna fix that, but. Okay, we'll
Do you need to take a break?
I do, but it's
Okay,
all right.
take a break.
I'll call the meeting back to order and we'll move on to item number 6, which is the adoption of the 2023 annual budget. This is also a public hearing. And we have Cindy Leach, our finance director, here to present. And Administrator Kirk.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just talk through some of the changes from the budget we showed you on the 22nd. And then Cindy will talk through kind of the mill levy and fee schedule changes and the other things that are included in there. If you have questions, we can do our best to answer those. With respect to the items that are changed, what I have on your screen is just a item for item addition. We reduced where it says reduce Third Street Massachusetts project, that's specifically the ARPA funds that we had contributed, or that we had targeted for that project. So we're gonna just, like I said, turn that dial. We don't know how much that project's gonna cost yet, so we're gonna have to come in and turn the dial some more when we get some bids anyway. So this is just a good way to show that we plan for the House Neighborly Services Utility Assistance. The Newell Farm purchase, we had planned to get that done this year. Obviously, that's not gonna close until January 3rd, which is next fiscal year. So making that move and adjustment, and then there's bank charges, survey expenses, escrow fees, inspection costs, some other things that we didn't have in that original line items. We're adding that in as well, so we can kind of capture the total cost of that transaction. The Conservation Trust Fund, we've added $40,000 in as a line item, something that our town forester and myself and Jeremy, our deputy town administrator, Keith, our Parks Public Works Manager. Anyway, we've been talking about the idea of an arboretum at Wagner Farm Park. We wanna work with the Port Committee and the Tree Committee to kind of study that and conceptualize what that could be. The original conservation easement for Wagner Farm Park, that southern 2/3, that big 40-acre farm, that conservation easement says, look, current activities farming, but the intent is really passive public recreational use. And we know that it will change at some point, and that's allowed in the conservation easement, educational activities, walking trails, passive recreation like bird watching and other things. We think an arboretum is like the perfect conglomeration of all of those items, and just thinking about what that could look like in the future. So we just thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and start doing some conceptual planning work with those two committees working on both of those, and this just gives us a little funding to kind of start that process. The Trust for Public Lands contribution, you already heard about that tonight, but we added money into the budget with the hope that you would be supportive of us contributing some funds to make that project a reality. The professional fees, the concept plan for the cemetery improvements, as we were preparing the budget, in parallel with that, we're also getting to the place where in the next few years, we're gonna be relatively out of space at the existing developed portions of the cemetery. We do own land, that there's a big field to the west of kind of the current cemetery plots. That's kind of our expansion area. But we also feel like before we make commitments about how we're gonna do that, let's kind of master plan out the cemetery. And then I think that we think that the cemetery needs some investment. The cemetery fund is not real healthy, right? It just doesn't pay for itself, as you can imagine. And so we'd be investing town funds in the future to do that, but we think there's a lot of good reason to. We don't wanna do that without really kind of planning out what the future looks like there, and so we thought we'd add some professional fees to hire a landscape architect or consultant, especially one that might specialize in cemeteries, but to help us lay it all out. To kind of talk through unique and different ways of burial and other things that we might want or be able to do in the newer areas of the cemetery. What other improvements do we need to make? It needs a new restroom building, maybe pave some of the roads, or maybe not, maybe leave them, but replant some of the areas where grass doesn't grow well and where irrigation is sparse. And anyway, just go through that whole planning process. Hopefully then make some good recommendations to you about where we can make some cool investments and really make that the place it deserves to be. The $8,000 for vehicle maintenance, that's specifically based on a quote we received. We need to do some transmission maintenance primarily to one of the buses. We always budget some money for just general maintenance, tires, oil changes, whatever comes up throughout the year as part of managing that Matt's fleet. And then the addition, that $8,000 will cover some transmission and engine work on basically rebuilding an entire transmission on one of the buses, and then some other things that need to be done. So those are that number is actually based on a handful of quotes we got. And then last, the sidewalk increase in funding from 300 to 500,000, that's something we talked about at the last meeting, just wanted to make sure that we reflected that. I did not include the increase that we did make to the crosswalk lights line item, but we did make that adjustment, and that was in the revised packet that went out yesterday. So I just didn't include it here on the summary, so. Anyway, so that's really the only changes from the budget you saw on the 22nd. And then I'll turn the time over to Cindy to kind of talk about mill levy and fee schedule.
So on the fee schedule, the only changes that were made from last year were changes in recreation fees. And they just basically changed it based on their needs to be able to do some cost recovery and to be competitive with other communities. And most of the changes were maybe $3 to $5, and they added a couple new programs which have fees to them, and they removed a couple programs which those were removed. So it was not a lot of major changes, but that's the only changes that were made to the fee schedule. And then the mill levy, most of the mill levy is basically a simple calculation. We get the numbers from the county, from the state, and the county, we have to use the valuations that they provide us and the limits that they provide us to be able to calculate the mill levy. And so I don't know if you have the certification form, but we had to make a 0.007 adjustment to be able to stay within the limits that they require us to stay within, which was about $2,800. Would have been over for our normal mill levy, which is 6.636. So the mill levy total for next year is 0.008 less than it was this year, which is really about the same. So we're pretty much getting the maximum amount that our mill levy will allow us to collect, minus about $2,800. So unless you have any questions on that, there are 3 resolutions. One summarizing the expenditures and revenues, one appropriating funds, which is just dealing with the expenditures, resolution adopting the fee schedule, and the mill levy as an ordinance. And I did also want to point out that we normally have a third resolution dealing with the budget to allow for funds in excess of the budget for the current year, and we did not have to do that this year because we were able to we did not exceed any of our budget funds, expenses. So that was a good thing, so which we try to do, obviously stay within those boundaries. So that's it.
Thank you. Trustees, questions?
Thank you for all the hard work.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. This is a public hearing. Well, you hate to say it, if we can keep the questions on. Do we have a line item for donations like we used to? I can't remember.
Yeah, we actually have in the general fund, it's under 15, that doesn't mean anything to you guys. But there is a line item in there specifically for the amount that we give to the Historical Society. There's a line item for the amount that we're going to do for the House of Neighborly Service.
Raft.
Raft is actually under BATS.
Oh, that's right, I forgot we moved that.
And,
I'm sorry, I didn't clarify, donations incoming.
We do.
Okay.
We do, yeah. We actually have gotten, I think, one donation since I've been here.
Yeah, yep, I remember that.
Don't know why, but somebody
The-
sent us $1,000, so.
The previous administrator wouldn't pay for a rail class we needed to attend, so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
kicked in to pay for it.
No, we do have one,
The donations line item is in our general fund revenue.
Okay.
It's 4607 anyway.
Thank you.
That probably means a whole lot to you.
No, it does, I'll remember. Other questions?
Question for the BATS bus and the transmission repair. Do we have anything, are we like setting aside little bits of money here and there to replace a bus, or how would that work if that time comes?
So, the BATS fund is primarily paid for out of the 1998 1% fund, and so one of the things that we'll be bringing to you right after the turn of the year is a presentation on the transit feasibility study and the recommendations that we intend to make to you about where we go in the future. And so that would change the nature of the fleet and how we manage it, and assuming that you guys supported our path forward. We just met with Raft last week to talk about kind of how they fit into all that and our ideas. They were very supportive, so we're excited to bring that to you in January. We do not currently set aside like a specific amount of money every year to pay to replace a bus.
And then the transmission retrofit or rebuild, did we consider talking to like Lightning Hybrids about maybe converting that vehicle to something more energy efficient?
I think that given our expected path forward, that's probably not the right decision for these buses.
It's too old, just not worth the.
There is some truth to that. None of these buses are in great shape. I mean, we do a decent job maintaining them, but they're just old and they should be replaced.
That's why I asked the first question first.
Yeah.
Not replacement.
Trustee Hardy, I was thinking the same thing. Administrator Kirk, I'm trying to phrase this as a question. It might be, is it worth, okay, I'll just wait until comments on this. Any other questions?
You have to do it like Jeopardy.
I know, I was trying to, what is?
What is?
Okay, I'll just do it. What is the opportunity? Because I talked to Lightning and they said you just need to bring in any diesel. So if this qualifies, it doesn't need to be in great shape, and then we get a government grant for a new one that's all electric.
True. I think the frame and the interior would all need to be renovated. I think that there's what we intend to suggest to you. I hate to go into a whole lot of detail today, but is that we move to what's called microtransit, which is smaller vehicles that are routed and scheduled with algorithms, basically like a public Uber service, where we wouldn't need or utilize larger bus vehicles because we could be more efficient. I mean, we rarely need, almost never need a vehicle of that size, and so
Micro machines.
where we might keep and utilize a vehicle of that size would be to continue to expand our senior recreation programming. Our recreation staff right now is developing a whole bunch of senior programs and doing things like taking trips to go see a show at a theater in Denver, right, together, or going to Black Hawk for the weekend or whatever, right? These senior trips that recreation departments often provide. We might utilize a larger vehicle for that, and that'd be a great opportunity to spruce those buses up and convert them to something more energy efficient. But I think from a transit perspective, our suggestion is gonna be that we go to a more microtransit oriented system.
Like vans and stuff.
Yeah, vans instead of buses.
Okay. Other questions, trustees? Okay, at this time, I'll open it up to the public. If anyone would like to speak to this agenda item of our final review of the 2023 budget. Please come to the front. Okay, I'll close the public portion of the hearing here, bring it back to the board for deliberation on this. Administrator Kirk, I really think, after talking to them, if it's still the same program, it's at really zero cost or is really minimal, and you bring in, the guy was hinting, bring in any diesel of this certain year, and I think one of ours qualified, and they have to drill a hole into the head to destroy the vehicle. But it didn't sound like a renovation, they would just, essentially it's a new body on a new
I would assume that'd be through their CMAQ funding and some other grant sources that allow you to convert old vehicles, and maybe that's what they're talking about.
It didn't sound like
It's definitely worth
conversion.
looking into.
What? Yeah, it's worth looking into instead of trying to put a transmission into this, if it just turns on and we can get it towed over there. The guy was kind of hinting at that, but it might not, the opportunity might not be there. It didn't seem like CMAQ funds, there was some kind of other general
Interesting.
non-MPO fund, but,
Okay.
okay, anyway.
We have a good
explore.
relationship with Lightning. We used some of their shuttles last year for the TPC tournament. They were nice enough to lend us the shuttles to kind of showcase their product and then be able to run folks back and forth from the clubhouse out to the kind of the far reaches of the course. Walt had a good time driving the bus. Walt's a great ambassador anyway. But anyway, yeah, we'll reach out and talk to him. I think it's a
worth
cool
talking
idea.
about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other questions or comments now? We're back to the board here. I think just from being a long-term resident and knowing before Wagner went on to port, it was Friends of Wagner Farm Park, and they had I just happened to track down a map online. If you Google it, you can kind of find it, but it's Friends of Wagner Farm Park, and they had an arboretum on the south side. So I think it's a great idea and kind of planned for by some or thought as people in the community, so I think that'll be really well received. Also, really all these adjustments and additions, sidewalks will be really well received. I think there was another, cemetery, that really needs some work. That bathroom is probably from the 60s, if not earlier, so it's not even a bathroom, it's like a camping pit. So as you know, we both received comments on this by members of the public, how it's really distasteful and
They're a constant maintenance problem and they're gross.
yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
The so-called bathrooms out there.
Yeah, whatever those things are. And to this board, it's fantastic, just the push for the extra sidewalks, and Trustee Sorcelli, and I know others have commented on the need for that, so thank you. And your diligence too on looking into the sidewalk or the crossing improvements, that's great.
Problem.
Anything else? Okay, anyone, any of the trustees like to move on these? There's
Do we
three,
have
so we'll
to-
start with the top one, I think.
Yeah, we gotta go in order, I take it.
I'll go for it.
We're
I
good.
move to adopt resolution number 2022-15, a resolution summarizing expenditures and revenues for each fund and adopting a budget for the town of Berthoud, Colorado for the calendar year beginning the first day of January 2023 and ending on the last day of December 2023.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, trustee Murphy says moved on the resolution 2022-15, trustee Hardy has seconded, clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
trustee Sorcelli,
Yes.
trustee Butler,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
Yes,
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. All right, on the second one?
I'll move to adopt resolution number 2022-16, a resolution appropriating sums of money to various funds in the amount and for the purposes set forth for the town of Berthoud, Colorado for the 2023 budget year.
Second.
Okay, trustee Murphy has moved on this, trustee Hardy has seconded, clerk, we have another roll call vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace.
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
trustee Ayers,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
Yes,
trustee Sorcelli,
Yes.
trustee Butler,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes.
go for the trifecta.
Yep.
I'll move to adopt resolution number 2022-17, a resolution of the town board or town of Berthoud adopting a fee schedule for all town fees as provided in the Berthoud Municipal Code.
I'll second again.
Okay, motion by trustee Murphy, seconded by trustee Hardy. Any final discussion on this, trustees? Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Butler,
Yes.
trustee Ayers,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
trustee Sorcelli,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Grace,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. All right, thank you. And Director Leach, thank you very much. A lot of work.
one more?
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
one
I'll go one more.
Oh, just kidding, sorry.
hang on.
You want this
Leading
last
you
one?
on.
I got this one.
Okay.
I'll move to adopt ordinance 1314, an ordinance of the town of Berthoud, Colorado levying the taxes for the year 2023 to defray the costs of the municipal government of Berthoud, Colorado for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2023.
I'll second.
Okay, trustee Murphy has moved on this, trustee Hardy has seconded, clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Sorcelli,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace.
Yes.
Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
trustee Ayers,
Yes.
trustee Butler,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. Okay. Now, thank you. All right. And final regular agenda item tonight is the First Street Sewer Plan. And we have Director Ken Matthews in the audience tonight to speak onto this. Thank you very much for being here. Administrator Kirk?
Yeah, I'll just turn the time over to Ken, and he'll walk you through the details of kind of where we're at with respect to the First Street trunk main and capacity limitations we have there, what we're doing. This came up in the context of some other, in a prior item, when the HOA, or not the HOA, the Metro District President from Prairie Star came to talk to you guys about commercial development, so we thought we'd give you a more thorough update about where we're at. We're obviously still doing a lot of analysis and engineering work, and Ken will talk you through those things, but anyway, I'll just turn the time over to him.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So I guess kind of what I want to lay out for you this evening is taking a few minutes to identify the problem, talk about some of the past efforts. This isn't a new problem for the town. We've known that there's some issues out there. Kind of talk about our current regulatory stance. What are we doing today? There's a study that was wrapped up earlier, kind of walk through that, and then outline this planned phased improvement that I'm wanting to propose to you tonight as our go-ahead plan for this. So basically, the problem is pretty straightforward. We have the trunk sewer basically following north and south along First Street is overloaded. As development has occurred north and east, it has become overloaded and sections of it are in need of rehabilitation. A little bit of terminology, I'm talking some terms here. I want to make sure everybody understands. As the wastewater comes out of the house and is collected in the sewer that's in the street in front of the house, those sewers run into, as I show here, these trunk sewers. And those could be anywhere from like 12 to 20 inch diameter typically. They then collect together and run into an interceptor sewer, which then conveys it to the wastewater plant. The interceptor sewers are 24 to, there's some big ones out there. In town of Berthoud, probably 30, 36 is the size that we're looking at. Geographically, our problem, as you can see, is as far as the overloaded section is up here at the 287 bypass, running basically along First Street all the way down past Mary's Farm. Previously, there was some work done identifying this and talking about a solution for this. There was a project identified in the 2014 utility plan. It was updated and that project remained in the 2018 plan that was programmed for 2020. There was some design that was done that had some issues with it. I want to kind of talk about that a little bit, which is kind of why it was sidelined. And one thing I want to make note of, we talk about the First Street trunk sewer. So the thought is, well, this is kind of on the easterly side of town. And yes, it is meandering down old 287 along First Street. But the service area runs all the way up here north of Heron Lakes. And all of that drains down. And that's basically the problem that we're dealing with. So the solution that was originally proposed is kind of outlined here with some line replacement and upsizing here, some new lines through here, and then discharging into the 18-inch line that's existing in Peakview Meadows. That's the first problem that we identified. Anecdotally, operations was coming into me, talking to me about that line, and it's overloaded already. So this solution would have discharged additional wastewater into a line that was already overloaded. The other side of it is there's a lot going on in First Street. We're spending a lot of time talking about a plan for First Street as a corridor. This proposed line doesn't really take any of that into account. Serving this GMA, this area, the GMA over here, that you couldn't do that with this proposed line. All of that generally is sloping south and to the east. So this project was tabled and set aside. And then when I came on board, I was concerned that there's a lot of development going on. Here's a project we need to take a look at it. I recommended that we sit tight on development until we figure out what we got and what we need to do. We mobilized baseline engineering in February to study this and come up with some ideas. Most of which are gonna be discussed here. There's a couple other thoughts that were outside of that study, but the executive summary of that study was included in your packet. The study, though, outlines these improvements, and I'm gonna outline them to you in kind of phases. Phase 1, 2, 3. Phase 1 would be improvements that we'd want to do right now, like I'm talking first quarter of next year. They're not complicated. We got a contractor on call. Let's just get out there and do it. I think it needs to be done immediately. I don't think we're in danger of bypassing wastewater out of the system or anything like that, but I think it needs immediate attention. A phase 2 solution is more of a kind of an interim solution while we are studying and designing and funding and constructing the phase 3, which is a big pipeline off on the east side of town. That will be the interceptor sewer that'll solve all these. So I'm gonna take a few minutes, kind of, if I'm going too fast as we're going through these and you have some questions, please stop me. And cause it is kind of scattered.
Ken, if I could, would you, when you say overloaded, will you kind of explain to the board what you mean by that?
Yeah, so for instance, and it's spotty. It's not like you pop every lid along this thing and wastewater is backing up the manhole. It's nothing like that. We do have some sections that are insufficiently sized, and some of those could be running full through the peak hours of the day every day. And then some not so much. So it's a general systematic assessment of the facility as a whole that it's overloaded. And the other way you look at this, that the state of Colorado requires us, is you look at it pretty conservatively. You don't think that what are the chances this is gonna overflow and I'm in good shape, so let's continue to take time. There's industry standards, peaking factors that you use, methodologies that you use, and you design it to only be filled 8/10 full with your peak flow. And so those kinds of things are taken into account. And in this case, there are sections of the sewer that exceed that criteria.
And I think it's important that we understand that we are at that max in portions of the sewer line, but we're not overflowing it. There's not sewage running in the streets. It's not what we're describing. We also don't ever want to get anywhere close to that, right? And so that's why we're working so urgently to make some of these corrections now.
Yeah.
And we can talk about how we got to that place if that's of value to you later.
Yeah. Like I was saying, this phase 1 work is a little bit scattered. The first section you see here at the top, that's up at the water plant. So what does the water plant have to do with that? Well, our filter backwash water is discharged into the sanitary sewer. And that's they call it a slug load. It's all pumped, and it can pump, upwards to 2,500 gallons a minute and discharge all at one time. It doesn't run for very long, but that can really impact that loading, and if it occurs at a peak, then that's a problem. The solution's very simple. We got a project going on up there right now. We've added a actuator valve to the pond that the pump backwash water is pumped into, and so that water will sit, and then at night that valve will automatically open and discharge it at night when the flow is low. So that's kind of a no-brainer. The next kind of series of small improvements kind of relate more to diversions. We're looking at the system and, all right, this area over here is overloaded. Is there some areas here that aren't quite as overloaded? Then can we divert flow into that and balance it out a little bit better? Two main criteria you'll hear a couple of times that I took into that. Number one is you need to make sure if you're doing that diversion, you don't make this worse. So we're really careful about that, because these people aren't happy over here that they can't tap into the sewer. But I also don't want to make these people upset too. Now you got the whole town mad at you, so that is not my goal. Anyway, the first spot where we would be looking at that, so here is Water Avenue and 4th. So the idea here is, here's the overloaded First Street sewer right here, is make a diversion here and then divert some of this flow coming down this 10-inch straight south. Not all of it, some of it. And so we would build a small modifications to this manhole, a little bit of pipe, and then we can facilitate that. All right, so as that runs downstream to the south, what happens then? Well, you move down here to Bunyan, and normally that flow then runs right back into the overload of First Street sewer. So what we're talking about doing now is diverting that here south of Bunyan in between 3rd and 4th. So then that kind of gets into the kill two birds with one stone. That's the other side of things that I wanted to do with this. If we're gonna be out there working, let's solve as many problems as we can. And if you notice here, we got a section of line that we're gonna have to upsize. It's old 6-inch diameter pipe. This is what it looks like. So in the process of upsizing that to 8 to facilitate this additional flow, we can get rid of that. So kill two birds. Then we took a look at it and it's like, all right, well, we need to chase this on downstream and make absolutely sure if we increase flow here, here's the diversion at Bunyan, and here's the as flowing south, it turns into a 12-inch diameter line. Actually, this was the old trunk sewer that carried most of the wastewater in town down to the old wastewater plant, which was right here. And so as town developed this way, and a lot of these lines were built to go to the wastewater plant all the way out here, there was a lot of flow taken off this line. And so it should have some capacity. Well, how are we gonna confirm that? Another thing that I talked to you guys about is we have a water wastewater master plan going on. We're collecting field data as part of that. We're monitoring flow out in the system. We installed an additional meter right here. This is on that 12-inch line that we're talking about diverting flow into. There's the flow meter for your viewing enjoyment. That's lovely.
Piece of licorice.
Yeah, that's the data logger, and then the meter itself is back up in the line there and is collecting depth and velocity. Here's a printout of the depth. It's a 12-inch line. As you can see, we're sitting here at 4 and change, and that's peak flow during the day. That amounts to about 160 gallons per minute. A acceptable amount of flow through that pipe would be 650. So, we got 500 gallons per minute or so of capacity. I wouldn't say let's use all of that, but half of that is definitely something that we could definitely look at. So we will be looking at the design of these phase 1 improvements to divert 250 gallons a minute down into this other section of pipe. So that's kind of the proposal there. Everybody all straightforward on that? Understand what I'm talking about? All right, so phase 2, that's a little bit longer term. I want to try to get a little bit bigger bang for our buck. The thought there is go into, so here we are at Prairie Star, here's the highway meandering. Right as Prairie Star sanitary sewer exits the subdivision and goes under the tracks and then heads out this way, is to drop a pumping station there, a sanitary sewer pumping station. And it would be temporary. This would be a temporary project. We put this in place, get it approved by the state, and put it in place, and it would pump over here into the to the large sewer that runs up and down Berthoud Parkway. We also monitored flow in that section and in order to see whether there was capacity in that, and there's a lot of capacity in that line. As we move forward, we want to crunch the numbers on that a little bit to make absolutely sure, and then to size this lift station accordingly. The only exception to that is all the way down at Wagner Farm. There's a small section of the sewer that's 12. As it comes south out of Vantage is 18. At Mountain, it's 18. As it goes past and south of the rec center, it's 12. That line was programmed to be upsized. We'll just go ahead and do it as part of this work and kind of get that taken care of. So kind of on the whole kill two birds theme again, the thought here is this pumping facility would maybe be in service for 5 years, 10 at the most, as we're planning, designing, and constructing the main interceptor, which I'm going to talk about as phase 3. That's a short lifespan. To take that pumping equipment and throw it away after 5 years would be a waste. Up here at Campion, the town owns and operates and does a lot of maintenance on an old lift station that serves this old area up there. That lift station needs to be replaced. We just put some equipment in it this year to kind of hold it over, but this pumping equipment that we'd spec out for this would be a perfect use at the 5 years when we decommission it, and we could just move that equipment up there and utilize it and to replace the Campion lift station. Some other miscellaneous improvements. Some of this line running kind of behind the is it Pioneer Materials? Is that the, yeah, is in bad shape and needs to be rehabilitated, and that would need to be done. That isn't necessarily a capacity improvement, it's just something that needs to be done, or we'll have some problems in the future. So that's phase 2, and then the rehabilitation portion of phase 3. The main crux to phase 3 is a legitimate interceptor that's going to serve East Berthoud, and so I'll kind of lay that out for you what we're thinking here. We've turned 90 degrees, so north is to the right. So here's the highway bypass running through, and here's First Street running down. Here's Farmstead down here. So it would start with the Farmstead project that's going on right now. They would be installing a 30-inch diameter interceptor through their subdivision. They're already set up to do that. There would be a component of the outlet of that would need to go south, across the Little Thompson River, and tie into the existing interceptor that feeds the wastewater plant right now. Then moving north and upstream, this is basically just kind of a concept alignment, but basically we would be meandering around Bacon Lake and kind of, essentially following the contours. When we get up here, one of the key components, so here's the Northern Water Campus. One of the key components is we would divert all of the flow off of the First Street sewer into this sewer at that point, thereby relieving all of these downstream problems. And those would just go away. And whatever needed to be rehabilitated could, and then we'd be good with that 12-inch sewer. This development could occur and tap into that 12-inch sewer and everything would be fine. As we move north, it's a little bit, I mean, would this line, could this fall out into this proposed development, or would it need to run along that design that's gonna sort all that stuff out? But essentially, that's what phase 3 is gonna look like. What I'd like to propose to you this evening is that I proceed with phase 1, first quarter of next year. Outline and package a construction project to be done in the first quarter. I've been talking to some consultant engineers and go ahead and follow through and select a consultant that would kind of close the loop on this analysis that I've been talking to you about. Some of that needs to be tightened up a little bit, and then move forward with the final design and the study and the phase 3, how it's put in there. Would developers build that? Would we build it? All of that would need to be sorted out. The phase 2, confirm the feasibility of that, size that pumping station and size that equipment. That's kind of what I'm thinking that this engineer would be working on. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Any questions on that?
So phase 1, 2, 3 is gonna go in that order, or are they gonna be overlapping, like as phase 1 ends, phase 2 begins, or?
Yeah, so the design of them that would be sequential, would be simultaneous. As we're putting phase 1 package together and building it, the engineer would be on board doing the feasibility of phase 2, confirming the pump design, maybe ordering some long lead equipment. Supply chain stuff is kind of tricky these days. This pump may take 6 months to get, so.
Okay.
Meeting with the state health department, stuff like that, getting out in front of those things.
With the information you've got on hand, your best educated guess, how long do you think it would take between phase 1 to start and phase 3 to be completed? Your best estimate at this point in time.
Yeah, I think 5 years is a pretty safe bet to have it all in the ground and operational.
While you're going through and essentially correcting and replacing a lot of this stuff, obviously, more bang for the buck, the better. While we're already there, while we already have it open, let's go ahead and do other things to that point. Are there any other people that we might be able to garner interest with while we already have the land open? Fiber optic cables or other repairs or updating infrastructure like utility grids, PVREA, anything like that we can talk to as well.
Right, how does this fit into our pavement management plan?
Sure.
That kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. That we will. The trouble with phase 1 and 2 is it's, like I said, it's so scattered.
Sure.
They're kind of all over, and they're concentrated small spots. But we absolutely will do that. Phase 3 will take a ton of coordination with the property owners, the potential developers. A lot of them are calling me all the time. I'm meeting with one of them tomorrow, who's trying to gather landowners that abut, kind of all those vertical lots that abut Mountain, east of First, and get them all on board and maybe make a group purchase of property or get some easements. And so there's a lot of that kind of activity going on to try to knock some of this stuff loose.
Okay, I guess last question. I know not too long ago, with the way a lot of these pipes were laid out in terms of water supply and then sewer supply, some of the documentation as to where these lines were had been lost or was incorrect. Would there be a built-in part of this where while we're correcting this, all of this is getting re-corrected and documented while we're already there and kind of extending off from that, or just the project immediately?
Well, that's way of life for us every day, kind of doing that. One of the first guys I hired is an engineering tech. One of his main duties is running around taking GPS shots. As we open a water line and he's out there taking a shot on it, and then that makes its way into our GIS. I mean, in the 6 months that Nathan has been on board, I bet we've moved our GIS product, an order of magnitude of what it had been up to that point. And just improving and making it more accurate, more useful.
Totally.
And that'll continue with this, of course.
And this is a side question to that, how, in terms of percentages, how much do you think it currently been updated? In terms of our total water system that can be mapped from what we had to what we have now, like 20%, 50%?
Now, I'd say we're 20 and thereabouts, maybe a little less.
Okay. I guess, and last question, so I stop running the table. I know there was also another project for up north with Carter Lake. Is that one still going to be affected by this? Is this going in current currency?
Yeah, they're going side by side.
Okay, so there's not gonna be any buffer overruns on either side, having two projects with multiple phases going at the same time?
No.
Other questions? Trustee Murphy?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Have there been any sanitary sewer overflows or backups reported so far in the affected area? Okay. And then the second thing, just looking at their recommendation number 3, which is kind of that section behind Pioneer's Hand, between County Road 10E and County Road 12. It's recommended to use the cure in place technology, and it's really interesting. I don't know if you guys have looked that up, but are we advantaged by utilizing that as a fix versus replacing it in that section? I noticed they mentioned there's some sagging and structural integrity issues.
We'll open the aperture wide open as far as the selection. My personal opinion is those trenchless technologies are great. It's not wide open. There's stuff out there, but it's not difficult area to construct in. The anniversary tree that a husband and wife, I'm not gonna have to tear down any of the anniversary trees to replace that line. And even with the diversion off of it, I'm thinking that the final model will show that 12-inch needs to be an 18-inch. And so cure in place is not gonna fit into that. So I would have preferred a less prescriptive recommendation and more of a rehabilitated than cure in place lining.
And that would be my personal attitude while we're at it, do the best that we can.
Yeah.
I think that's my questions.
Other questions?
Help me understand, so we have, I don't know if it's anything official, a moratorium on some building permits along this First Street area.
It's less of a building permit moratorium and it's more of a development permit moratorium. So, the early phases of, there are areas in Prairie Star that are not final platted yet. And they're working through that. They have some other issues we've got to address before they're ready to be final platted. But not committing to those new areas of development before we have this clearly sorted out. So, again, we're not at a place where we're overflowing sewers, but this is an urgent need. It really should have been done 2 years ago, right? We should be doing what we're doing right now 2 years ago.
Right.
As you know, we went through a lot of organizational changes around our engineering and utilities. That's why we have Ken here, thrilled to have him here and helping us create better solutions and longer term solutions, thinking about master planned areas that weren't included in the original solutions, those kinds of details. But a lot of the kind of the moratorium is an ultra conservative approach to saying, let's not create a problem, right? Let's not create a overflow problem more so than it is like hey, sewage is flowing on the streets, we're all going to jail, right? Nobody wants that.
What I'm telling developers when they ask me is your project isn't canceled. but it's on hold. We will serve it with adequate infrastructure. And I'm working on when that'll be, and I'll get that answer to you as soon as I can. So that's kind of what I'm telling everybody.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with.
Yeah,
My question is timing with these phases, how, which phase of this, overall project opens up these areas for developing?
Right, so, this first phase, that's a month and a half long, 2-month project. That 250 gallons per minute, if we can confirm that and lock that down, then that could be some additional, okay, it's a first come, first serve, however we decide to administer that is still also up in the air. The intent of phase one was, I think we need improvements for maybe some of the stuff we got under construction right now. And, cause there's still quite a bit under construction and those developers want to tap into the sewer, and I don't wanna have to tell them they can't. So that's primarily what that's focused on. There may be some collateral benefits coming out of phase one that'll allow some more. Phase two is intended, what we're hoping to get on phase two is back to all right, it's open season, so to speak, for development, from a sanitary sewer standpoint, and berth it again, and I'm not gonna hassle anybody. And we have capacity while we're designing and building phase three. That's the intent. The specifics of it, and how many units are gonna come on after we do phase two, I don't have that figured out yet. Phase two timeline wise, if we can get started on that right away, it's my thought that we could be ordering equipment and starting construction on that within a year of getting the engineer on board and have the additional capacity that we could take advantage of in 18 months from now.
Okay.
Do you mind elaborating on the funding here to make these improvements, besides different budgets we just passed, but?
It is included in the.
So who's paying for this? Is this coming out of the general fund or is this coming out of an impact fee?
Yeah, so the project itself, it sits in Fund 24, 23, or whatever. It's
impact fees.
It's the impact fee.
That was my whole point. That's great. The
Yeah.
public needs to hear that.
This is not gonna be, we collect impact fees to build capacity improvements, right?
That's what this is.
And that's what this is, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of, or I shouldn't say we are, but there's the occasional pushback on, the line thing that happened in the summer.
That's right.
The irrigation it sounds like a capacity issue with the water, we're focusing on this, and then this, so it's good, we're making these improvements out of impact fees, and these things do happen, and I think you're in a really tough spot, and the more we can uncover this without the public coming to us to tell these issues, so we didn't hear this from you guys, we heard this from a member of the public. Just like we didn't hear about the water main break, we heard that from business members. It helps us to get ahead of things if we're appraised by staff, and it's hard to do that in public, so this might be an email thing.
And we, in Ken's defense,
I'm not, yeah, I think,
he had actually planned to come to you months ago.
I think this comes from
And
the top.
we've been putting you guys off.
Yeah.
Because I wanted Ken to have a really clear path forward, right? I didn't wanna come here and say, hey, we know we have a problem, we're working on a problem, we don't know what the solution is yet. And so we've been kind of holding off coming to you until we were prepared to say, we think we have a plan. And
Sure,
the Metro District gentleman for Prairie Star scooped us, and that's okay, and
Yeah.
we should have come and made that presentation to you sooner, but that's why we were.
And there's nothing,
That's what we
you
were
did
kind of
run into a
holding
lot of
for,
things, and
so.
this was a delay in staff doing the appropriate thing, I think that took too long to get you here. We have you here, there's certainly an amnesty on all the stuff you have to fix. So I'm just happy to hear it from you in ahead of time, I think the public can get behind that these are what we need to do, and you're not paying for it,
Right.
Thank you.
I agree, and I see this as a priority.
Oh, it is, yeah, no doubt about it.
Well, and I just wanna say thank you, because this, I think the biggest question everyone has with development is infrastructure in place to support what we're seeing. And I think some of the answer to that was no in this specific area.
Yeah.
And so thank you for catching us up to where we need to be. And for us to be able to show the public that we're taking care of that. I also agree with the mayor in the fact that if something is lagging in need, like the infrastructure, and it's causing a delay in development or some other effect, I would wanna know way before you guys have it all frameworked out, just so that we can not be caught off guard by questions if we don't even know that there was an issue to begin with. So that just helps us be in the loop, like we're working on a solution and we have an amazing team who's preparing a full analysis of it, just so that we could say, because this is a big issue in our community, is infrastructure in place to support the growth, and I think this is gonna be a great improvement. And thank you for your presentation, it answered a lot of questions too, because I think one of the things that I was curious about is how you work with landowners for underground infrastructure when you are going under farmland or private property. I wasn't sure how the town worked with them, and you mentioned partnering with them in easements, and just thank you for building that community, I don't know, support for that project instead of just, pushing it through.
It's a diplomatic process for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. And on that, we'll be first quarter next year, I mean, you guys are gonna be neck deep in water wastewater needs, cause we'll be submitting, and I plan on having a workshop session with all of you guys on the outcome from the water wastewater master plan. That'll be transformational for our utility for sure. As establishing where we need to be, what we have to do, all the regulatory, environmental regulations, and not just pipe size and development. I mean, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. So that will, I hope
Thanks
that's
for
not
the-
overwhelming.
Thanks for the inoculation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had one more, I just forgot. Oh, I just wanted to second Mayor Pro Tem's point on just kind of looking into a wet and dig policy. If we're already opening up some stuff, and we know Love and Pulse is in Campion, and we know that we're kind of backing out of Aloe. And so if we need to get stuff from Campion and we're opening up stuff, it might be worth just us putting in conduit without a plan, and if it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Or we push up a conversation with Pulse.
Yep.
So we
We're
don't have
already
to go in
we're
and.
already in conversations with Pulse right now. So.
Yeah, no, if we're doing this, then the taxpayers don't have to come in later and front the horizontal boring if we're already, just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, already they take advantage of what we can kind of thing, so whatever we can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trustees, do you mind if I open this up to the public? If there's nothing else for you.
How do,
Okay.
yeah.
Lynn? Is there anyone else in the audience which would? You got your PhD. You gotta
true.
go that. You know everything. All right, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Any final thoughts, comments? Okay, I believe we have it's just a direct staff, so it's not an official resolution.
We do have a roll call vote with it?
There is a roll call vote with it, okay. Anyone like to direct staff?
I'll move to direct staff to proceed with the First Street Sewer Capacity Improvement Project.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Murphy has moved on this direction, Mayor Pro Tem Grace has seconded, clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Trustee Butler?
Yes.
Trustee Sorsali?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Grace?
Yes.
Trustee Ayers?
Yes.
Trustee Hardy?
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck?
Yes, okay. We're gonna move on to reports here, but there might be potential action after that, right?
We are hoping that you will take action after our executive session, so we will come back to this
Okay.
room and vote.
I think you're right though,
Sooner
or
than-
clerk, you're right, it still makes sense to push up reports just for people in the audience that wanna have this in line. So we'll start off with the trustees and we'll go to trustee Butler and move right.
I don't have anything.
Okay, good to have you back. I know you were here last time too, but I know you went on vacation. Trustee Ayers?
The port committee met last week, got some updates on some playground possible equipment for Pioneer Park expansion. They were looking through some of the different ideas for like a little treehouse, which is kinda cool. It's like a rope treehouse, so I think that's gonna be pretty interesting. That gets put in anytime soon. And then they made the Richardson Park update. Staff asked them to recommend which phase to put as a priority, and everyone was in agreement that the ball fields and the parking were a priority over any sort of water feature. Bathrooms are up and ready in Fickle Park. I think that was reported last time, but they're ready to go.
Top notch.
And there was a
I
caveat to
did
that
tour.
in that the decoration or the material on the bathroom is supposed to rust. So that's going to happen to provide
That's interesting.
aesthetic.
I'll use that excuse at my house.
Yeah,
You're patinaing it.
Yes, it's patina, yes. Let's see. And there was a couple of comments from different members of the committee and from outreach to the committee members that everyone is really happy with the rec center and how it is producing contacts with community members, people who are getting to go there and be a part of a group. Being part of those recreational facilities is allowing people to meet everyone in town as a sort of a way to join the community together. So they're getting continuing to get a lot of good feedback about the amenities there. And that's it.
Awesome. Trustee Murphy.
I just wish everyone happy holidays and look forward to working with you guys in 23.
All right.
That's all I've got.
Trustee Hardy?
Ditto. Hope everybody enjoyed the parade. Granted, there were a few comments that could make it better, which is fine, but you know, we did what we could do, and I thought we pulled it off pretty good. I'd love to see some of the stats from that new software, see how many people are actually downtown.
Yeah, Walt should be able to pull that information.
So that'd be an interesting report to see. Bertha Main Street's meeting Thursday night. We're still in stages of planning Snowfest. Let's see what happens Thursday night on that.
That was Thursday lunch now.
Thursday lunch, yeah, sure. I think that's all I've got.
I just gonna comment, so I'll just do that now I almost wanna call it your parade, Tim. And when people complain, I'm just getting to the point where I say show up. And so I wouldn't heed too many of these negative comments, which I kind of see these improvements next year. Where it's honestly just you and I'm kind of playing a side role along with Minty and Nicole. There's 4 of us and you've taken this on, so I think you get that. You're well deserved to say show up next year and let's see you actually put your money where your mouth is, because there's a lot of people that have ideas but they rarely show up. So
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like there was a lot of comments of like, why wasn't this there? Well,
yeah, you can say, you know what, if you
reached
don't have
out.
volunteers show up next year, then you're not gonna get anything.
Yeah,
So
when you reach out and you get a no, then that's why they weren't there.
I thought it
Nobody
went really
ever
well,
hears
so
that,
thank
right?
you.
So,
I have 3 traffic cones I need to return to, but they're in the back of my car.
We can work it out.
Thanks.
did you hear that, Jim? He's got 3 challenges.
You were there. I needed them for staging. You know?
Got some hot equipment in the back of your car. No, that's it.
Yeah, no, I shouldn't have said that. It's probably a pretty big problem there, government. All right, Trustee Sorcelli?
Nothing to report.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem?
It was honestly 2 questions, I guess. One was Rise Broadband, seeing how that's what that story is, I guess. Hadn't heard anything in a while.
Pulse, you mean?
Yes, that one. Pulse.
Just that we have another meeting with them. They sent us a quick update. They have, when we met with Pulse the first time, we said, hey, could you give us just an idea of high level, what do you think this is gonna look like for us? Timing, costs, process to participate with Pulse. And so they're putting that package together with their consulting team, their engineers and those folks. And so we are meeting before the end of the year. I don't remember the date off the top of my head, just to kind of get an overview of where that's at. Walt continues to kind of reach out to them. Walt's kind of our point person on the broadband issue, and just to make sure they know we're still interested and we want to continue to push this forward, and they are, and they keep responding back, say, we love it, thanks for reaching out, and here's where we're at, we're still working, we got some more analysis to do. But hopefully soon after the first year, we'll have at least kind of a high level idea of how that could go.
Nice. Yeah. Other one was, I guess, the email from earlier this week I sent to you about the LIDA alert. Any updates on that one?
No updates yet.
Any idea when we would be able to get an update on that?
I just need to talk to Sergeant Anderson, who I haven't spoken to yet.
Okay.
We have used LIDA for just recently for mosquito spraying, right?
We did.
So we know how to do it. It's just working with another government entity, like you brought up, right?
That was So we didn't really know how to use Lita when we had the water break.
Right.
Not as well as we needed to.
And you did work on
So
it.
we've done some training, we're kind of
Appreciate
better
it.
prepared to utilize that system. In this case, the issue that you were asking about was a school and sheriff's department response that I actually didn't know about until I got your email, and so, which is normal, right? I don't know everything that goes on. But just, trying to get a better understanding of like, when does Lita get deployed in those instances? Are there special considerations because of the proximity to the school? As you know, and I don't wanna speculate, because I haven't had a chance to even speak to Sergeant Anderson, so we're gonna talk about him as if he's not in the room. To just better understand how that works, but you don't wanna create panic either, right? And so there's this balance between when you're releasing public information in an emergency situation, how do you do that?
That's what Facebook's for.
Yeah.
No. So I think Lita does have a
To create the
scope, 'cause
panic,
that was my
that's what
thought too.
Facebook's
Does
for.
Heritage Ridge really need to know about Turner or just the immediate neighbors? But I think you can narrow it down.
You can.
Cause I don't think other communities have an active Facebook page like us where a Heritage Ridge person would, I don't know, I just think there's a way to narrow
But
it.
it is important to be able to do targeted notifications, right, to specific areas, neighborhoods. The challenge is now that is not as easy to do because so many people don't have landlines, right? So your address doesn't have a phone number.
And your cell phone may still be over there.
And your
not
cell
here.
phone could be on a different tower, right, and all those details.
Well, no, the address for your cell phone probably still shows you live in Loveland, but you've moved to Berthoud and
Or your personal cell phone still has a California number or a Texas number. I don't know.
That's crazy. Who would do that? That's insane.
Well, and I think
North
part of the
Dakota.
issue is that the students attending, parents were finding out who lived all over town.
Yep.
So it wasn't geographic, it was parents being
That's a
scared
good point.
for their
Yeah, it
child at
isn't
the
just a
school,
geographic
so
thing, yeah.
that would have to go through the school district security as well.
Right, which I'm sure there are many fingers in this pie, and I'm not trying to say it's exactly one problem and exactly one solution. It's mostly just trying to figure out where that line is drawn, when it is utilized, how it is utilized, and what an example of that would be used and when it would not be used. Because currently it's just, yes, we have it. And then there's just a void of like, well, how would it get used? So that was ultimately the question I was going for.
Yeah, in that instance, we would rely on the sheriff's department to make that decision.
Sure.
I wouldn't step in and say it's time for you to send out a notice.
Sure.
And this might ultimately, school things might come because they're the SROs from the sheriff's office. It's just
Yeah,
working out
I think that's the,
from our notification when, how we know.
and I think there's a difference between an incident happening at the school and an incident happening near the school, right?
Yep.
Those are treated totally differently, right? And so, anyway, like I said, I'll be honest, I haven't spoken to Sergeant Anderson about it yet.
that's why you need all the Mrs. Krantzes out there. That's an old TV joke. You're all,
The
kids are all too
Facebook.
young.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Quick, Grandpa, take your meds.
Alright, shut up over here.
That's it for me.
Okay, thanks. I attended the done with the MPO as chair, and but they did appoint me to this rail district, and so Thursday and Friday I was up at Union Station at a fantastic retreat with elected officials and professionals from up and down the Front Range, from Trinidad to we're the most northern ones. But Union Pacific flew in from Utah. We had a professional from the governor's office in New Mexico who's on our board, and heard from them. And the governor's allocated I think 30 million towards this project, with the recognition too that Longmont was, RTD promised Longmont a rail line, and then realized after they voted yes on it that they'll never have the money. So some of this is working on maybe how Front Range Rail can fix that issue, if that's ever gonna be a possibility. So there's actually a book out now called Train to Nowhere that was written about this problem, because it's apparently a very, very big issue and on a lot of Longmont voters' minds, on what happened there and how to regain their trust. But really, to the point of tonight, it really made me think it would be really, really great for us in this Main Street program to have just even a square set aside, Administrator Kirk, and that's just for something to point at. I know we brought this up before, but it kind of just drilled it home. If we don't have any way to say, we've always planned for this, then we're gonna go back to where we were 2 years ago, where Berthoud was off the map, because you didn't have a plan for it, So if we just even have a square, like Trustee Hardy said, north of the Grain Tower kind of thing, better than nothing.
I don't disagree. I think especially given the conversations we had at the First Street overlay meeting, I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay, great, yeah, awesome. Otherwise, I wanted to thank you, I kinda got my points across on that, along with my government stealing. I'll give the cones back, but thank you, Tim, it's a ton of work. It went off really well, I think you're picking on some really minor points, and we can always go up, so. I just need more people to show up to Main Street meetings or do their own thing and work along with Main Street to get kind of these winter things going. And staff has done a fantastic job on, I've heard it again and again and just received another email from a middle school teacher on, I'll forward it on, but thank you for the lighting work you guys did on Main Street.
Thank you for welcoming you to do the collaboration meeting that we just had with all the other nonprofits.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that a
I
little.
didn't mean to say something
Yeah.
like that.
No, you're fine.
I didn't attend, so thank you. And finally, Trustee Murphy hit on it, but I just want to thank everyone, including in the audience tonight. But this has just been a fantastic board, and I hope you guys feel the same. But man, it's just great to work with anyone, and I'm not getting on previous board members, but I'm just getting on the collective here, where there's just no back chatter, and we're all focused on what we have going on and supporting one another, and not attacking each other behind the scenes. And again, I'm not going on any trustee in particular, I just think it becomes a group thing after a while and we end up doing it. So man, it's just a relief to be with you guys and anything I can do to help out in this upcoming year, but thank you so much for, we get emotional, but for not having to go through that, and we're actually able to focus on issues that really matter to the public. And a fantastic staff, that's, you know, not only you brought Kurt or really helped Kurt kind of open up but what you've brought to the table here. And Attorney Smith, having you here too, I just really appreciate it. And Kurt said it right, we do have really a top clerks team in the state. And people need to recognize that Christian was the head last year of Colorado Clerks Association and a really good representative for the town, so thank you. And in the audience, Aaron and Lynn, I really appreciate you guys showing up, and I hope we all do. And it's not negative comments coming up and what you need to do, but it's grammar improvements and stuff like that, you know, so. And Sergeant Anderson, I do believe we're coming in on your last year.
I hope so.
Well, I'll write out more formally, but just, this is your last year, and I hope we're all aware of that. And you've been with us since 2014 in this position, and really took over an issue and really made it better to the public. You've walked door to door in every business in Main Street, and how can I help? Held these meetings with the cop, or coffee with the cop, and now meetings with the chief, and really put trust back in our law enforcement. So thank you for being here. And Ken as well. I think you took over a tough role and you're coming home with all these solutions and stuff. So it's a lot of hope for the town and a lot of great things to say. So thank you all. And I'll conclude with that. Commissioner Kirk?
Thank you, Mayor. I couldn't agree more. We have a really great staff and there's so many things that we can still do better. And so it's fun and motivating to know that there's still ways we can improve. And just appreciate your support as we make those changes. The community meeting that Trustee Hardy referenced, one of the things that we talked about at the staff level over the last couple of months was that we need to have a more coordinated connection to our local nonprofits, and especially as we talk about downtown, and there's so many groups that invest so much of their time and energy downtown. Main Street is obviously at the top of that list, the Chamber of Commerce, Berthoud Local, the Historical Society, the library, and the Friends of the Library. I mean, there's these groups that really have a lot of impact and investment in downtown, and we thought, let's get all together and just start talking more frequently as a group, you know? We all talk kind of individually and independently. There's a lot of just awesome discussion. Bought some breakfast burritos, met at a library, and just had no agenda really, just an informal conversation about like, what can we do to help each other more? A lot of talk about senior programming and how can we work together to do that better. Talked about community events calendar. We're building some capacity internally to be able to do that in a more coordinated way with these other groups. You know, we got to talk a little bit about the 3rd Street corridor. You know, what we want to do there. We got to talk about, you know, more coordinated marketing efforts between all these groups in the town, and how do we really strengthen our brand identity throughout the region. Anyways, it was really fun. We're going to try to do that quarterly. Our next one's going to be in February. We'd love for you to be there. Mayor Trustee Hardy was able to attend, which was great.
Yeah, I owe you an apology because I attend Thursday.
Not at all. And you know, you're always busy in the morning
Well-
as a result of what you do, and
It's
so-
just that retreat that day, but
yeah.
anyway, it wasn't a good excuse because that retreat was way later than I thought to start out, so I should have been there, and I really want to say thank you for putting these on because that's a huge improvement for them to hear from you.
And we're excited about it, and it was fun. It's one of those you walk out and you go, man, this was great. You don't always have meetings like that. That one was definitely one of them. Wanted to give you a quick update on the Shop Local program. A big thank you to Cindy and to Walt and all those that are kind of working to put that together. We had a lot of support from Tim. You know, we're taking receipts at town hall from folks that are shopping locally and then drawing out on once a week and giving out some gift cards the town purchased to help market downtown and encourage shopping locally. And in the first 2 weeks, the amount of money that we reflected on the receipts that were turned in was over $17,000 in spending. And that's just a tiny portion of what's being spent in town, but that was pretty cool to see. And it's just a long list of businesses that are being supported and those receipts are being turned in. So that's been cool to see. And that'll go on through the rest of the month. And then the Holiday Light Contest, judging is this week, so if you haven't gone out and submitted your People's Choice favorite, please do. That's on the website. There's a map with all the homes that signed up to participate. I think we had 40 houses sign up, which is more than we thought, honestly. So just a cool way to connect with our neighborhood services department, or code enforcement as it's pejoratively called probably. But, anyway, that's a neat opportunity to kind of share what we're doing and build some community. That's been really fun. So like I said, get out and vote if you haven't voted already. And that's it for me.
Okay, Trace Smith?
Well, Mayor Karspeck and trustees, I want to say thank you for the privilege of working for this board. And I want to say to this staff, thank you for the privilege of working with you. And happy holidays and a safe year end to everybody.
Thank you. Okay, thank you all. So again, we'll move into executive session, and for the audience here, we'll there's a possibility we'll come back and take action, because we do not take action or any formal motions within executive session, it's just kind of learn about the issue. So there's a possibility we will come back to this dais one more time tonight to take action on a, anyway. Would anyone like to move us into executive session?
I'll do it.
Best to shut my mouth early before, yeah, okay.
I move to enter into executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-6-4024, :1, subsection A, for discussions related to the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of any real, personal, or other property interest. 2, subsection E, to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. And 3, subsection B, for a conference with legal counsel for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. And the following details are provided: water rights.
Second.
Okay, we have motion by trustee Ayers, seconded by trustee Murphy. Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Gray.
Yes.
Trustee Hardy.
Yes.
Trustee Ayers.
Yes.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Sarcelli.
Yes.
Trustee Butler.
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes, okay, thank you for everyone showing up tonight. And let's take we can take a 5. It's now 10:02 p.m. and the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were Attorney Johnson, Administrator Kirk, Attorney Smith, Trustee Sorcelli, Mayor Pro Tem Grace, Trustee Butler, Trustee Ayers, Trustee Murphy, Trustee Hardy, and myself, Mayor Karspeck. If any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. I don't hear any, so we'll move on to the next agenda item. And the next and final agenda item is a proposed resolution 2022-18. Would any trustees like to speak to this, or anyone? Okay, would anyone like to just move us into that?
We'd just like to recommend that you approve resolution 2022-18 a resolution to appropriate and beneficially use water on behalf of the town of Berthoud and authorize us to file a water court application for adjudication of such appropriation and beneficial use.
Thank you.
So moved.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem has moved on the issue. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Barely heard Trustee Hardy ahead, so we're gonna do, Mayor Pro Tem Grace has moved on this. Trustee Hardy has seconded. Any final discussion, trustees? Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Butler,
Yes.
trustee Ayers,
Yes.
trustee Hardy. Yes. Trustee Corselli,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace.
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great night and a good New Year's. We'll see you next year.